public here.
Oh, thank you.
And
We are participating in the conversation.
Yes.
Welcome to the show and participate in the conversation. Depending on what you ate last night, we hope
Lord.
that you're having a wonderful morning today. And if you're not feeling so good, just remember, change your diet.
Yep. It's what you eat.
Yeah, you are what you eat the previous night.
And if you're feeling horrible, what it probably means that what you ate is eating you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eat better. Eat chicken and the cock wakes you up
And
at 3 a.m.
And fresh vegetables. But if you find that you have a problem with waking up and you want to be waking up more often, just mix
You
everything.
want to be waking up more often.
Yes, just mix everything into that meal and you'll really wake up more often in the course of the night.
Okay.
I'm glad I could provide entertainment for you guys this morning.
Welcome to the show. Today we are going to be discussing education. We want to cast a spotlight on what the government plans to roll out, and this is called community-based learning, where students are going to be learning very soon. And they don't really need to go to their actual former schools. They just need to go to the nearest school or church in the community. So we want to understand how this is going to roll out, and then what happens to those who have been studying in private schools. Private schools also being used as venues for this community-based learning for everybody in the village. We want to understand all that and what the government is doing to deal with education as we fight COVID-19. We saw the CS for Health, for Education yesterday. He came out and said, look, I take instructions from one person, the appointing authority. If that appointing authority has not told me, go and reopen schools, you people just leave me alone.
I thought it was his job to
Paraphrasing.
advise the appointing authority on what his ministry had determined and why, and all the accompanying details that go with such things. I
Yep.
thought that was how it works.
Yep. Basically, he was implying that the advice that they've given to the president is let's not reopen schools, and the president has not gone against that advice. So anybody else who's talking about, you need to chill. But let's begin the show where we always begin, and this is tracking COVID-19 numbers in the country and globally. Where are we today?
Well, a low number in Kenya recorded yesterday, 137, total number of cases found yesterday, 193 new COVID-19 cases, raising the country's caseload to 32,557. So this was out of a sample size of 3,381. So some low numbers recorded yesterday. Of course, we know that not as many tests as the country would like to be taken are being taken, or not as many samples as would like to be taken are being taken. The world numbers at 23,808,536, with 16,357,986 having recovered. There is a new and worrying situation in the world now, in that there has been reinfection of certain people in certain countries, from Hong Kong to Italy to South Korea, who had COVID, recovered, and then have been reinfected. Italy, over the last 2 days, has recorded upwards of 1,000 cases per day, and this was the highest number ever since they ceased the lockdown, which is about 6 weeks ago.
Since they flattened the curve.
Yes, which was about 6 weeks ago. And so now they're seeing a surge in these numbers now. There's reinfection of people who had recovered from COVID on the Eastern Hemisphere. And so now people are, it's a worrying thing. And a lot is now being said about the second wave of infections, and saying that the second wave could be more deadly than the first.
When we're talking about reinfections, essentially, are we dealing with the same thing again, or has it come new, re-energized, more powerful, more virulent? What is it?
Well, if you look at one gentleman that we saw on the news yesterday in Hong Kong, he had the same symptoms that he had the first time that he had COVID. So this is what made him actually go in and say, okay, I'm feeling the same way. And then when they did the test, they found out that, yes, he actually was COVID positive after having been tested negative 6 weeks ago and started to feel ill again. So in this case, he was feeling the same way. What scientists and experts at this point are saying is that it's possible to feel the same symptoms. It's also possible that you would feel a lot worse if you got reinfected. And so now they don't know how much more virulent it will be as it comes back. But it's clear that a reinfection is possible. That whole theory of if you get it once, then you're all right and you probably won't get it again now seems to have been toppled completely.
So essentially the story of herd immunity out of the window.
Exactly. And
it's heading.
It's heading in that. It's heading out the window. And I remember the almost scary conversation we had with the gentleman who exposed themselves to the virus in Malindi, yes? And Kwale. Right? And
general vicinity is the coast.
Yeah. And they were of the opinion that if they got it, they wouldn't get it again. But now the world is telling us something totally different.
They weren't actually wrong. At that particular point in time, the discussions around COVID was, remember there was a constant debate about herd immunity.
Yeah.
Sweden kept coming in. In our neighborhood, Tanzania kept coming in. And the understanding at that time was that once you're infected, the likelihood of being infected again was almost next to zero. Now, what we are talking about falls in the category of anytime you have a situation such as this one, where you have a pandemic, what we don't know about the disease is greater than what we know. And with every passing day, we are going to be figuring out new things. So a nimble mind and acrobatic mind becomes very, very necessary.
Yeah. If we look at a country like Italy, decimated Italy, I mean, we had people across board, old, middle, young, and, of childhood age who were affected by this. We had doctors who were pulled out of retirement to come and help because it was so, the situation was so bad and so dire that they needed. They were just recovering from this. Hospitals were overflowing, all sorts of drama was happening. And then now having to deal with 1,000 cases a day. I mean, we looked at countries like New Zealand, that would, after they had been declared COVID-19 free, were then dealing with 2-3 cases per day. Italy went from basically 0 to 100 and went from recording 2 to 3 cases a day to 1,000 on Sunday and another 1,000 on Monday.
But we must always keep in mind the populations we're dealing with.
That's true. But again, you can imagine just when they had opened up, that means that the infections were not at bay. They had not been held off.
But you see the thing about this infection, remember, one of the things that is puzzling for many people who read information about COVID is when you talk about somebody being asymptomatic, all right? The moment you bring in the discussion of the condition of being asymptomatic, then it simply means you don't know the number of people who could be asymptomatic.
You don't know.
Yes. And remember, there was also a debate that people who are symptomatic may not necessarily have the sort of viral load with which to infect others. That particular thinking has also been toppled. And there's an understanding that even if someone is asymptomatic, they are still infectious. So new things keep coming up. So when it comes to something like COVID, even as we wait for these new things, new discoveries, and new understanding, what has been the constant is the basics of staying safe. It hasn't changed.
It's interesting that you say that because they're looking at a lot of these infections among young people. And we know that in the West, it's the summer. And a lot of people had traveled into northern Italy, for example, and then we're now coming back because universities are opening again in the autumn and children are supposed to be going back to school. So families who would normally travel for the summer holiday now are coming back. And that is what they see. So there are a lot of factors also that are contributing to this. However, it is that people went on holiday and everything just kind of mellowed. The measures that you would put in place, the precautionary measures that you would put in, like wearing a mask and being hygienic and etc., basically flew out the window while people were on holiday, which is one thing that was also reported.
But in some of this country, it never even entered the house for it to fly out of the window. Things like masks were not mandatory.
Yeah.
It's later, like not even a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, is when you would hear discussions about masks being mandatory in certain parts of the Western world. In places like America, it's a heated debate.
Yeah.
It isn't mandatory. So what we are considering the ABC of COVID, safety or prevention, is not an ABC in the rest of the world.
It isn't.
No.
It isn't. So if you look at then what's happening in Italy, so clearly this is a fresh wave. Is it a second wave for them? Is it a third wave?
To be honest, Eric, I don't understand.
This wave.
I know the first, second thing, I actually don't get it.
After you hit a peak and then you start plateauing or coming down, and then now you hit another. Now the numbers start to rise.
Okay, let me explain why I'm saying I don't get it. For instance, Kenyans seem to think, because the numbers that we keep talking about, that the infection rate in this country is going down. But that may not necessarily be true in Kenya.
Yeah.
If you look at the numbers that we have actually tested, okay? If you look at the figures that we keep getting, you see, the understanding of most people is those people who are tested and those are the results today. That's not true. No. That's not the case. We've had a backlog of specimens that were taken for testing but could not be tested simply because we didn't have the wherewithal to do so.
Yeah.
So when we do, the results are now given. And from these results, now, there's the detail of, okay, when exactly were the specimens taken? Okay, what time do they represent? What space do they represent? And then there's the question of the genuinely vast majority of Kenyans do not know their status.
Yep.
Even if you were to talk about it in terms of percentages, the percentage of people who've tested is such a minuscule number compared to the population of this country. It's not data that you can rely on to sort of like even advise you on the way forward. It's too small a number. So we essentially are at a point where we can only give information about what is happening or what we've been told is happening now or what is the current situation. But what is not known is so vast. And yet people think we've peaked and
now we are starting to get to the flattening of the curve.
Yes. So when people talk about this, like now, summer is going to end, isn't it? Now with summer ending, we start moving towards the cold season.
Right.
Now the cold season is when these viruses tend to thrive. So what do you think awaits these countries?
Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. And that actually is a correct response. Because we do not know. And
we don't know yet.
No.
18 minutes after 6 o'clock, it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at the skies and see what's happening weather-wise today. And then we will start looking at the big headlines in the newspapers today. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
As the world changes, so do we. We adapt to our situations to bring out the best in us. This is why the Standard Group and Oxford University Press East Africa have partnered to bring you Tutor Summer Online. For just 10 shillings, you have unlimited access to the reputable source of revision materials conveniently. All you have to do is log into tutorsoma.standardmedia.co.ke and make the most of the time for all students, including candidates for both primary and secondary schools. So, as we stay home, we keep dreams of future successes.
Days, 14 degrees at the moment. We're going to see highs of 23 and lows of 12, which is quite chilly for Nairobi. Nyeri, 14 degrees and light rain showers being experienced this morning. Highs of 21 and lows of 13, and that rainy weather likely to continue through till the evening. It's 14 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nakuru, and highs of 22 and lows of 12 will be experienced with thunderstorms in the afternoon. In Eldoret this morning, it's 13 degrees, highs of 19 and lows of 11. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 18, with thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. In Kakamega, it's mostly cloudy at 16, highs of 23 and lows of 14, with thunderstorms expected later. It's going to be mostly cloudy in Mombasa today at 24 degrees. Currently, highs of 28 and lows of 23, and there's a chance of a shower very soon. For 24 degrees in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Let's look into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 18 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 18. Thunderstorms expected soon. In Dar es Salaam, it's 21 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 31 and lows of 21. It's getting much warmer in Johannesburg. It's 11 degrees this morning. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 10 with sunny conditions throughout the day. It's a clear morning in Lagos at 24 degrees. It's not going to last long though, because it'll be overcast later with highs of 28 and lows of 22. Paris weather is clear this morning at 17, highs of 28 and lows of 16. Light rain showers being experienced in the UK, specifically London this morning at 17. It'll be a rainy day throughout, highs of 21 and lows of 15. And we'll finish things off in New York, where it's a warm Monday night. Clear skies, however, at 32. It'll go to a high of 36 today and lows of 24.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Room on Spice FM, live streaming, and the live stream is up. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. Today's proverb, CT Muga.
Today's proverb: a frowning face of a goat cannot stop its owner from taking it to the market.
A frowning face of a goat cannot stop its owner from taking it to the market.
Yes, I also did mention yesterday that I would expound on on yesterday's proverb. Yes, and I will. In the course of the day, I will. In the course of the morning, I will.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any close Swahili version of this?
In your mother tongue, perhaps, and then translate it to us in a language that is universally understood.
Yeah. One that we can basically say.
Well, even if in your language the goat isn't frowning and smiling, you can also just mention that in
Spice FM KE on Twitter. Maybe this is close to the Kelele Achura medali.
It isn't really far.
Kelele Achura haizui ng'ombe kunywa maji.
Yes, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay. So let's look at the headlines. What do you want to start?
Well, the Star, the Nation, Standard, it's Raila, Raila, and then more.
Raila. All right.
Why he's under fire? He takes the heat. You know, what I find interesting about our conversation is like it's been predetermined what Raila must say. He's become what you may call community property, and the community even determines what he ought to say and what he ought not to say.
Yeah.
And if he deviates ever so slightly from this norm that has been determined for him, then all manner of discussions.
Then he comes under fire.
He comes under fire. He either comes under fire, takes the heat. Yeah. We all know that heat comes from fire. Same thing that they're talking about.
Yeah.
But there's a comment by a certain Professor Winnie Mitula, a governance expert. It's only reasonable that Kenyans will expect him to keep beating the drums of accountability, especially now when we don't have an opposition per se. It also tells you what our understanding of an opposition is. And unfortunately, what this learned individual is also telling us is that everything about the opposition in this country is embedded in the person of this one guy called Raila.
Well, he's the leader of the largest party that's not in government, so it comes with the territory.
Oh, speaking of expectations, that's the expectation. As you say, then it shines light on what the expectation of people is in terms of what an opposition should be. And for a lot of people, is that an opposition is constantly speaking out against the government of the day, is that you're pointing out things that you see are going wrong, or you're pointing out things that they may have done wrong that you think should be going in the opposite direction. And that's what people's perception of an opposition is.
And somehow he is the only one they feel.
can fulfill
Yes.
this role.
Well, he's among those. I mean, nobody has said anything wrong about Musalia Mudavadi making the statements that Musalia Mudavadi has made, which is demanding accountability.
Eric.
Nobody has done the same when Martha Karua has done that. But now, when Raila speaks, because Raila, like I say again, is the leader of the largest party that is not in government. So clearly, he is the leader of opposition.
I am not even arguing against that. What I find peculiar is this. You've missed out Kalonzo. Even Kalonzo
has
has
done the
spoken.
same. Yes.
But it's like they're speaking to themselves.
Because then you could go further and ask
Because
them
if you read what Mudavadi said yesterday, it was substantive. He pointed out things, appeared once.
done.
Kalonzo stood out and spoke, dusted. Martha Karua is also a leader of a party. Spoke, dusted. Now,
if Raila had maybe spoken from the get-go, he had spoken the same language that those other three that you've mentioned had spoken, he would have appeared once. But Raila appears to be saying something that is slightly different and not clearly understood. First of all, the party secretary general issues a statement which says, you know what you're seeing in the media is mere allegations, and we need to see it proven, all right? And therefore, we shall only demand accountability when it comes from the right sources. One. Then the party leader, because of the pushback from that statement, is forced to make his own statement. And where he comes out, and he's also saying words that are similar to those of the Secretary General, which were earlier misunderstood. Because what the party leader is basically saying is that, you know what, we demand accountability, but we demand accountability that is coming from credible investigations.
yes,
And a credible investigation in this matter is this. And then he's not coming out like he did during the other matters. He doesn't come out, first of all, to say, you know what, something is wrong here and we need answers. He's coming out to say, calm down. We don't know. We don't know whether really
and look at the response to that.
Yep. If he had come out to say, money has been stolen here, we demand answers.
Eric, you've actually proved my point. You see, you have also joined the bandwagon of the prescriptive group.
Of what an opposition.
He should have said, he might have said, you know, we had Millie Odhiambo here in the studio. And there's something she said which has stuck in my mind. She said, look, we have shouted and made noise about these issues for the longest time.
Yep.
And then we figured and said, wait. Do we want to make noise or do we want results? Said, so we are still pushing the same agenda we pushed. We're just pushing it differently.
Yeah.
Whereby previously they would have demanded, now we are urging.
They would have called names.
So now we are urging, is
Yes.
what she said.
If you want to look at, for instance, if you want to just the anatomy of the comments, choice an example of comments that have been attributed to Raila over the years from 2016 to 2019. Let me start with 2016, okay? Eurobond, until the government proves otherwise, we maintain that Eurobond money was raised abroad and stolen abroad.
There you go. One. Go.
Okay? 2015, NYS scandal. The twists and turns have all been attempts at ensuring that those who bear the real and greatest responsibility for the loss of taxpayers' money at NYS are not brought to account for their criminal actions. Then it gets even more interesting. 2016, Afia House scandal. This scandal is President Kenyatta's scandal. Point blank. No ifs and buts. He must deal with it as such. He must tell the country what he knows, when he knew it, and what and when he knew it. Hey, December, again, 2016. You know, that was December 2nd. Same day. Is the president silent on this and many other thefts in the country because of his conflicted position? Is he giving up on the war on corruption because it has now entered his own inner sanctum? We have reason to believe so. Okay.
So when a man walks in a certain way, with a certain gait, you expect him to continue walking with that gait. If he changes that gait, you will point out the fact that he has changed his gait. And that's exactly what the headlines today are saying, and the people are saying. This Raila, this is what we've gotten accustomed to hearing from Raila, and the way he approaches things. Now here he is coming to say, you know what, you know, we are not really sure that there has been any theft. You know, we need first of all to establish whether there's been any theft. What did he say about Eurobond? Until the government proves otherwise, we shall assume this money was eaten.
Oh no, he said Anglo leasing. He had choice things to say in 2019. Yes. The judiciary is either with us in the resolve to tame graft or is lumped together with. Now, you see, my point exactly, Eric. This is what
he made this bed. All right. Now, if he wants to lie on another bed, he has to tell us, I'm going to.
But why lie on another bed? Why not just change the mattress? Or even just change your position in the same bed? Essentially, we're saying, from what we're reading, he's not allowed.
No.
Yes.
He could be allowed.
That is a comment that I'm hearing. He's not allowed.
It's not expected.
Why is he changing? Why?
City, if you came to this studio one day wearing a plain shirt, right? A plain shirt and a jacket and a tie, would be like, hi.
Okay, who has lent him these garments?
Yeah, what's up? City, what's happening? Yes. What's going on? Today, you're not yourself today, City. That's what we'd say. That's what we're saying about Raila.
Okay. Clearly, you are in good company because the headlines of mainstream media seem to share that particular view. And yet...
And especially, because this cooperation with the government...
Handshake.
Yes. Seems to, be mellowing him down.
Actually...
And that is what Professor Winnie Mitula is saying. You know what? There is an expectation. Now that there is no opposition per se, what he's saying is, you are the leader of the party that should be in opposition.
See?
You
see my point? He's not supposed to change.
And yet here
he can't change. My goodness.
Why
he can't
is he
change. He's not supposed to change.
Of course not.
If he changes, who is going to be saying these things that he was saying?
We need you to be saying these things.
And
so
yet,
if you change who is aware
and
is our
yet,
hope.
Let's look at what he said. Is there any untruth in what he said? The answer is no.
No. Was there any untruth to what he had said earlier? No.
No. It's the manner in which he said it. Again, it appears that when you are Raila Odinga, you are not allowed to change.
When Shikuku went to see Moi and he ate ugali, he did not change what he was saying principally, but how he was saying it had changed.
And why
because
is it that... Yes,
ugali had lined his throat.
Why do we impute ill motives and wrong intentions when it has been explained with clarity that, yes, you're pursuing the same thing, but you've chosen to use a different way.
He is not being definitive. That's one thing that we must point out. What he's saying is true, that yes, we need a proper investigation and all, but given now his close proximity to the powers that be, he should be saying that this is the route map.
Eric, actually, given that he's in close proximity to the powers, take the view that maybe now he understands things that previously he had not understood.
Like now he understands who's eaten the money that was supposed to have.
No, it's not that who was eaten. But if you don't have the evidence, you're not going to actually follow up with any action that will prove to us that this matter is being sorted out. It'll just be words, and that'll be it.
He's been close to power before.
Yes.
He has been a prime minister of the Republic before.
Yes,
he knows how government works. Not once, 5 years. He's only shaken hands 2 years ago.
He was prime minister once. Was he prime minister another time, which I didn't know about?
5 years. Once is not just at an event. You won't make it appear like, he walked in and walked. No.
Was there a second term as prime minister?
Let's take a break. Okay? 26 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Let's see what's happening on the roads.
traffic.
Mombasa Road is piling up this morning. Already building up from the SGR this morning and trying to get your way to through Cabanas rather. It's going to take you a pretty minute this Tuesday morning. We're going to look at other parts of the city, and we know that today, or rather last night to this morning, was the last day of construction of the footbridge on the Thika Superhighway. And that should have ended today, unless we hear differently from Ken Ha. So if you didn't move out early enough, you're likely to get stuck in that jam. But we're going to keep an eye on Thika Road today. Guys, let's not have as many accidents as we did yesterday. Shall we try and keep it safe? Yes, visibility a little bit better today because the fog is not quite as low, but we're going to have to wait and see what it looks like in a bit. All right. Coming into the CBD, though, from Westlands is looking pretty good. I don't think we have much of an issue there. So we're going to look at about half an hour or so and see how things may have changed, hoping everybody has a safe trip to and from where you're going today. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Push through accountability for this COVID-19, and the rest of the country is up in arms. There were demonstrations around various parts of the country yesterday. Nakuru, Kisumu, and police had to lob tear gas because, people were not waiting for a professional audit that can lead to prosecution instead of political shouting match. People were shouting.
Do it now.
Shouting. Yes. Yep. Let's wait for that, but let's look at other headlines.
Speaking of other fraud, did you think that it was just at Kemsa? No. Fraud delays release of school cash. According to the ministry, head teachers submitted exaggerated lists of BOM tutors. A scheme by some school heads to swindle the government of funds has led to a delay in the release of cash for paying teachers and other staff employed by boards of management. According to the Education Ministry, the head teachers submitted exaggerated lists of staff, prompting an audit that now has taken weeks. What is holding the money is the unverified data that was submitted to us from the field vis-a-vis, spelled with a Z, but okay. The data we have with the Teacher Service Commission. We have received a humongous list from the field, including teachers who are not enrolled with the TSC. And this is according to Education Chief Administrative Secretary Zach Kinuthia. This means heads of schools sent untrue or illegitimate data, meaning that money would have gone to the wrong people or more people than is the reality, denying the genuine beneficiaries their right. They noted this huge discrepancy in the data submitted by school heads, and it now says that in the final stages of cleaning up before releasing the money to pay staff who have gone without pay since schools were closed in March. Earlier, there were reports that there were more than 72,000 teachers employed by the boards of management across the country. However, fresh details have emerged to show that the number could be much lower, as school heads might have given a list of non-existent teachers. Everybody's looking for this quick buck, man. So even within the ministry, where you're looking at and saying, have teachers continued to be paid? What exactly has happened? Teachers have not been paid actually since March. And this is the reason why we've been given.
How do you register the BOM teachers with the government city?
I actually don't know. Because the BOM teachers have been paid by the school, and that money is actually derived from the fees. That's how they're paid, and there's an understanding of how much they should be paid. But I assume that now, with this idea of the government trying to get them to be paid, they would need to register with the Education Ministry or the education body that takes, so that the names are taken to the relevant authorities, the details to the relevant authorities. You know, what I don't understand, even as I was listening to that issue of the scandal, is the government doesn't give you money in your hand. No, it asks you for details where it can send the money to. Okay? So what I'm wondering is...
How is the fraud being
Yes, this is what I'm wondering. It's not difficult to figure out that I could mention you as my best friends on the planet, say, there's this money that I've arranged for you to get, okay? Now, so that you benefit from it, I will only take 25%, okay? But I need your bank details, but it will be coming every month. And he will say, okay, what do I need to do for it? I said, no, I've arranged.
Don't worry.
According to the ministry, they received an inflated list from the field.
How do
in
they know
terms
it's
of-
inflated?
Thank you, Eric.
Because according to this, that they compared it with the list that they got from the TSC. And
But
So the TSC, so they are getting the TSC teachers, and probably now the school heads are also sending the list of even the BOM teachers.
exactly.
So
So
where
now,
is the
according to them, this list, because according to them, anybody who is going to be paid should be enrolled with TSC,
Okay.
right?
Or all teachers are
all
enrolled with TSC.
teachers should
even
be
those that are
enrolled
not
with TSC,
employed by TSC
should be
must
enrolled
be accredited
with
by
TSC.
TSC.
Yes. Now,
is that
that's
not
the
so?
that is
The general
rule of
understanding,
thumb.
yeah.
But it doesn't always work that way.
but according to the ministry, they're not going to pay
Look,
if you're not.
So it's about accreditation.
Exactly. So,
So
there's
if-
a list that they have that has come from the TSC. There's a list that they have that has come from the field around the
Okay.
country.
Okay.
The two do not correlate.
So are you, Eric Latiff, on the TSC list as an accredited teacher? If you're not, and your name has been sent, then you're struck off that.
that's what they're doing now. So
Okay.
they're striking the list.
please bear in mind that if you are talking about schools, say in the village, that's what I'm familiar with, there may be someone who was a student in that school, finished their Form 4,
And you said, come and
did
teach.
well. Yes, that becomes a BOM teacher. Because the board of management who decide. But you know, it's not TSC who decides, it's board of management. So there's
And
figure.
there are no guidelines. You don't have any minimums to, I mean, who is it that you're going to employ?
All
as a
right,
teacher?
let me begin by explaining so that you understand it. What are the guidelines for getting a volunteer?
Some basic qualification.
You see,
especially if you're using them to teach children.
If you want a teacher that meets the criteria that the TSC has, then that is a person who would probably be registered with the TSC.
So somebody who has gone through a teacher's training college
Yes.
and graduated,
Yes.
and therefore
Yes,
also
yes,
registered.
yes. You don't necessarily need to have studied education, but there has to be an indication that you are going to. Now, remember, there was a back and forth about this some times back as to the people who actually studied education and they don't have employment. Yet there are people who did not study education but are employed by the TSC. It was to fill a gap. That same gap is the same gap that is being filled by the BOM. The understanding was there's a gap. The TSC has not sent sufficient teachers, but we have people who we know
in the village
in the village who, yes,
who
precisely.
can teach.
Yes.
And that's what I'm asking. Should the BOM not be getting some basic guidelines? For instance, I'm
Eric.
saying, yes, this person has huyu mtoto wa so and so alimaliza form 4. Na unajua alikuwa mwerevu sana.
No,
Can come and teach.
he actually has a good results.
Yes.
Yes.
Can come and teach. But then do they have don't they need to have the basics of how to, for example, know how to deal with the children, such
Okay.
what you are taught in an education course or in a TTC?
Let me give you an example. If the school has a lab, you want a lab assistant, and you bring in a villager, all right? You will teach that person. The teachers who use the lab will train this person on how to be an assistant. They're not going to go for some other training. It's that one. What I expect you to do for me, whenever we have lessons, this is our schedule of lessons, this is what you are going to do. Now, you will know what is required. Now, the expertise of teaching that you're talking about arises from the fact that this particular fellow also went through the same process and learnt. So the information that is being passed on to the student is something they know because they went through it. But as for being trained as teachers,
Do they have the skill of being a teacher? No.
no, neither do those who just have basic degrees and have not studied education. They also don't, and yet they're employed as teachers. This is the point I'm trying to make. Because of the need to employ teachers and because of the problems that the TSC has had and the issues around it, it is this one, it's a mixed package.
It's a very deep one then, because we have very many people who have gone through teacher training
Many.
colleges who have not been employed.
Many.
Okay.
Now, let me muddy the waters further. If it is a private school, they will employ whoever they wish to employ.
Yes. And yet we have, that school should be inspected because that school is licensed by the government.
That school will be inspected.
That school should be inspected and its staff should be inspected.
They are inspected.
Do you qualify to actually teach?
Usually there is a threshold of and the number of teachers with the ratio of students that you have that you must have.
Yes.
If you meet that basic standard, the other details...
The rest are just details.
Well, they are details. And first of all, even if you are the inspector, you will take care of the details that are presented to you. Do you think you will know everything that happens in that private school? The answer is you don't. I'm simply trying to say that this is something that has a lot of issues around it that lack clarity. That's really what I'm trying to tell you. But those who are in schools have one thing in mind. How do I ensure that these students learn? Yes. And what's the best way of doing it?
Many of them are, how do I ensure that the
Yes,
students
because even
pass?
these BOM teachers that are brought in, they are brought in to fill a gap. You have asked the TSC to provide you the teacher. They haven't provided, but you need to have these students taught. So what are you going to do?
Get the basic requirements and then employ using that
Exactly.
as a template.
Yes.
And the basic employment is not one, you come from this village, and two, we know your parents.
Actually, unfortunately, it features very, very strongly.
Yeah, but it should not be the...
Most
the
BOM
determinant.
teachers will be people who are graduates. Some will even have qualifications as teachers. They have a certificate, they have a diploma, and so forth. But I was simply giving you a picture of what the reality is. Yes.
The other thing is that they should present their TSC certification. Because now, okay, so maybe this is not a fraud.
Well, according to the
Eric,
ministry, it is.
the moment somebody has all those details that you require, they will cost you more. And the BO may not have the money to pay that. I'm simply, I want you to get the reality of
I know the reality. And even though that whole story, I mean, the BOM is the people from that same village, and someone
Yes.
will come to them and say, you know, my son so-and-so, or my daughter so-and-so. And, you know, they passed.
They got their diploma, they got their degree, and they studied this, and they don't have a job.
They don't have a job.
And you know very well that you need a teacher.
We have an opportunity.
By and large, people who are employed are people who actually qualify and are teachers. But I'm simply telling you, they don't always have to be teachers.
Let's take a break now at 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. And during this break, we'll be telling you about the portal, the Captain Cargo portal by the Kenya Ports Authority, the information portal that lets you understand everything you need to understand about the operations of the Kenya Ports Authority. What do you want to focus on today?
Well, so we're going to go back into processing documents for import cargo because they're quite, there's some information that we didn't quite put out there that can all be found on Captain Cargo. So we're going to go through processing documents for import cargo because we were, I think, carried away by the excitement of getting those generators into Kenya. But now if we look at the steps through which your documents specifically are processed for import, there's certain things that you need. And all of this made very clear on the portal of Captain Cargo. So Captain Cargo says that your first step is that your supplier arranges for cargo inspection. So essentially the stuff that you're bringing in has to conform with pre-shipment verification of conformity to standards. So making sure that everything that you're bringing in is up to scratch in terms of quality, in terms of shelf life, in terms of, other standards. So they make sure that you have that documentation first. Then you get your certificate of conformity. So this is another piece of documentation that you would then receive so that you know that, yes, the stuff that you're bringing into Kenya is good to go and you have that certificate. So after that has happened is when your cargo is loaded on the vessel and it's shipped to Kenya. So it's on its way. And in this now process, another step is that for those vessels or for those consignments that are coming to Kenya, you get what is called an import declaration form from KRA. So far you have 3 documents. You get your pre-shipment verification, then you get your certificate of conformity, and then you get your import declaration form while your stuff is on the way. So we're going to look at some other documentation that you need, and Captain Cargo is so graciously providing with all of this fantastic information.
www.kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO. 10 minutes to 7.
Spice FM, Malindi. spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues at 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. MPs back a proposal to regulate referral of patients overseas. A proposed law could come to the rescue of families who have been paying through the nose to have their kin treated abroad. Legislators are backing a bill seeking to regulate overseas medical referrals in a bid to stop the abuse and exploitation of patients. This bill is seeking to amend the Health Act to introduce a new section that will provide for the development of policy guidelines to regulate the referral of patients to health institutions in and outside the country. This is because complaints have made overseas referrals occasioned by higher medical, travel and accommodation costs, where in some cases patients are being exploited. 10,000 patients leave Kenya annually to seek medical services overseas, with the country losing an estimated $15 million every year from outbound medical bills. And just looking at an example, between July and December 2019, more than 350 patients were submitted to the Ministry of Health Vetting Committee seeking medical treatment abroad. Now, there are some people who, some agents who are working with people abroad to do this. Some agents for referrals are being paid up to 400,000 shillings for a referral of one patient, and you can see how lucrative this business is, and people are not happy. 400,000 shillings
just for a referral,
just to refer a patient to go to some hospital abroad. Of course, you're talking about oncology, cardiac surgery, advanced neurospine surgery, transplant surgery, assisted reproductive technology, advanced and reference medical labs facilities. Some of the treatments that people are referred for. You know, and it just becomes a huge, lucrative business for some, but you can imagine the cost that people are just being subjected to.
Absolutely.
And yet they didn't have to go through that.
Well, okay. So just a quick one. Question of blood and treatment of COVID-19. Local experts join search for the coronavirus treatment utilizing a decade-old method that involves use of plasma from a recovered patient to treat someone battling the ailment. And I thought this was very interesting against what we found out yesterday, that, you know, somebody who recovered from COVID then is likely to be infected again. So if this treatment that they're talking about now that could use the plasma of someone who has been recovered to treat COVID, then we might now get back into stirring the pot and just transferring the virus again to other people. So it's interesting that this has been found out, this has been reported on the day when it has been found out that people who had COVID previously then were reinfected. Even as trials for vaccines and drugs against COVID continue, scientists are exploring a way to stop the global pandemic. Plasma, which forms 55% of blood in the liquid part of white blood cells, so now is being used, or rather is being studied in terms of whether it can be used to form a treatment that would treat COVID-19 positive. When the body is exposed to a foreign pathogen, it reacts by producing antibodies, which are like an army that fights those foreign intruders. Once a person recovers, also known as convalesced, the antibodies stick around for a while within the plasma, guarding one in case of a future reoccurrence. But now we've seen that if this actually did happen with COVID, we've seen that people are becoming reinfected. And so now the question is whether this treatment that is being studied would actually work.
Why are they studying it? And others have already done the studying and even given results.
I've given results on the same thing. Well,
we talked about this yesterday.
Yep. The FDA has already allowed some of these things to
for
happen,
emergency cases, because they have looked at the information that the Mayo Clinic, from a study that involved 35,000 patients, and that's a decent number.
Maybe the Kenyan experts just want verification of the same.
Actually, when I asked the question, it isn't that what I think what they're doing is wrong. I think what they're doing is correct in this sense. It is important, even if the US have had their findings, for you to corroborate.
Yep.
That is what now will make whatever findings universally accepted. And this is the thing about research. Yes, the US have done their bit. Now, let us see who else has done it and what it is that they have figured or what they have come up with. Remember, the thing about plasma, it's within that plasma that you have antibodies. So it's the antibodies that you find within the plasma that is actually used for treatment. Yes, to boost whatever antibodies your body may actually have. Yes, and remember the antibodies. Should we say an explosion of the antibodies occurs when you actually are infected.
When you are infected.
Yes, that's when they sort of like check in and say, here we are. We've
to
come
fight.
Yes, we've come to defend.
Let's see how it rolls out. So this issue that has dominated international news and even on social media, the shooting in Wisconsin. Police officers, black man entering car, police officers draw their gun and shoot the man.
7 times.
7 times.
After they tased him. So
protesters, demonstrators, they forced now the governor to call in the National Guard to aid the local police. When you look at that, though, with the kind of global coverage that the Black Lives Matter movement received, you ask yourself, so what was this policeman thinking?
at that point.
At that point. What is it that drove the police officer to actually shoot not just once or twice or thrice?
There were 2 of them.
There were 2 of
And
them,
there are
and did you
2.
see the gentleman was in the driver's seat and they were still going at him? So, exactly. Throwing all
And
caution
he's
to
not
the
violent.
wind.
I mean, he's just walking away.
It's beyond throwing caution to the wind. It seems like it really did seem like it was an anger-motivated move. Because what was it? To even think in that moment that I'm likely to face hell because of this action.
Yeah.
But that didn't seem to matter. It didn't seem to matter. Miraculously, the gentleman is still alive. Critical, but alive. And it'll just be interesting to see how this plays out. And it's not lost on me, the irony that this is happening at a time when everybody is still in the throes of the movement.
And attention is on this.
What
Is on
they've
this
done
particular
is
thing.
given the movement a new injection of life.
Absolutely. So there's all the more reason why we don't stop.
They say, okay. So
Step on the gas.
It's a state next, the neighboring state to where the previous gentleman had been killed. It's not far. It's Machakos and Nairobi.
So you can imagine when this person was actually reporting to work that yesterday in the morning or every day, they must have this at the back of their minds. We've got a sizable black community here. We are going to be policing in the black neighborhoods. And any action that we take is likely to
It's
raise
going to
an
throw
issue.
the spotlight on us. What
Well,
are you thinking?
What is certainly going to happen, these particular individuals, they'll be analyzed, the policemen, they'll be analyzed and analyzed and then some.
Yeah, probably
Who they
going to be
are,
asked if they're
what
psychotic.
their background, all that will be looked into.
Yeah.
All that will be looked into. Their
Must-
details, their
Unbelievable.
backgrounds, where they come from, any history they may have. The problem is, they have put the entire police force in that place under now renewed scrutiny.
Too much.
The microscope just got larger.
Too much
they did.
scrutiny for nothing.
Yes, they did.
We're coming to the top of the hour. Keep it right here on Spice FM. We'll be discussing the home-based learning. We'll be speaking to the PS for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, in the next hour. And this whole show today we are dedicating to the issue of learning during this time of COVID-19. Students are going to be at home until the end of the year, at least. And we don't know what exactly is going to happen beyond that. So let's discuss that. Good morning. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now coming up to 7 o'clock. Shortly, we'll also be live on KTN Home.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, looking at different parts of the city. We'll take a look at Westlands. We're coming down from Kangemi. Is slow. It's moving. This is due to the renovation that's taking place just at the Nairobi school, and that will affect traffic going all the way to the Westlands roundabout. Coming off of James Gishuru and joining that, also likely to be something of nightmarish proportions this morning, but you're going to have to be patient, wait it out and see how that's going to open up. All right, coming into the CBD from Thika Road is not too terrible this morning. You'll be able to join the Globe Cinema overpass without too much of a headache. At the Pagani underpass, though, it's a bit slower than you would expect this morning. We know that the renovation finished this morning at about 4:30, or rather the roads were open at that time, so making it easier for us to get into the CBD without a problem. Jogo Road is moving extremely slowly at this point, getting to the City Stadium roundabout. either going then towards industrial area or going into the CBD from that roundabout, you should be all right. We're going to take a look at different parts of the city. Mombasa Road is moving slow, and we expect this at this time because we're right in the middle of traffic hour just started. We'll keep you informed of the other details as we move along. You let us know also what you see kindly. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2020. A very good morning to you, and thank you very much for tuning in to Spice FM and KT and Home. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're also live streaming the show on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. As we begin the hour, C.T. Muga, start us off with the proverb.
The frowning face of a goat cannot stop its owner from taking it to the market.
The frowning face
Of
of
a
a goat cannot stop its owner
From taking it to the
from
market.
taking it to the market.
Yes.
Any close translation that you have of this in your mother tongue or even in the Swahili language, just let us know. Spice FM KE is the Twitter handle. Let's discuss education now, shall we? And we're joined on the line by the PS for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang. You see, the government is about to roll out, and this has also been covered even in today's papers, is about to roll out now community-based learning. And community-based learning is where the government came up with this program and said, you know, children are at home. We are not reopening schools, but we want to keep these children engaged, and they need to get some basic learning. So teachers have gotten into the program, and students, pupils will be going to the nearest school or the nearest church, depending on what has been identified as the nearest learning place. And this is where some basic form of learning is going to take place. Now, we need to understand, what is this community-based learning? Are we going to be going ahead with the curriculum, with the syllabus as was intended initially in the year before COVID-19 struck? How many teachers should we have in a village so that the village can qualify to have community-based learning? Is it going to be in schools? The issue of physical distancing. There are some instances where we're talking about a certain area may have some private schools, but there's quite some substantial distance to the nearest public school. Are we talking about the public schools plus the private schools? Are the private schools involved in this? There are very many questions, right? And that's why we're discussing this today. The entire education debate, we're having it today. Let's first of all bring in the PS for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang. Good morning, Bona PS.
Good morning, Latiff.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
I think let's start off from the very beginning, Bona PS. Explain to us what the community-based learning is all about and what the intentions are.
Thank you very much, Latiff. I think what I'll say about this, from the name itself, community, is that we are taking learning back to the community so that we can engage our children in the environment in which they are in. So we are not taking these children anywhere else. If you are living in a gated community, then we take those children in that particular area. For those of us who come from the rural area, then what we are mapping out is that particular rural area. We check how many children are around here. Is there a teacher in that place? Once there is a teacher that lives within that particular community, then this is the teacher that will engage these particular children. So what is very important, and what I can say about this particular program, is that we would want to have our children positively engaged. We would want our children and our learners to be productive. We would want them to be useful with themselves in this particular time of COVID-19. Because as we have all seen in the last few months that we have had this problem, we've been running e-learning and remote learning. But still, as we try to do this, we realize that there's still so many children in communities that may not be able to be reached because of issues of connectivity, issues of not maybe having the devices, which devices include radio, TV, smartphones. So to be able to have and give these children an equal opportunity in engaging them, then we, with engagement and a lot of consultation with our stakeholders, we realize that already we are having our teachers paid. We are having our teachers already taken care of in terms of being employees of Teacher Service Commission. Then we said, and with engagement, including with teachers themselves, because we had the EDS Association, we had the National Union of Teachers, we have CUPET, we had the Kenya Association for Special Schools. So with all these people, with private schools, we all say that it is good to have our children engaged so that at any one time, we are giving them busy and we are giving them positively engaged during this time of COVID. Thank you.
I'm looking at how this is going to roll out across the country. And first, before we go to details, in terms of timelines, is this community-based learning something to keep children busy or learners busy just during the COVID period? Or is it something that will then be embedded in overall education moving forward?
I think as at this particular time, because we are in a situation that none of us prepared for, we have been found in this situation of COVID-19, then we have to be innovative to make sure that our children, one, are engaged, two, continue to learn. And learning is not only about what we teach in our curriculum. Learning is wider than just what we learn and what we have in our curriculum. There are life skills, there are situations that we would want to teach our children. For those of us who are brought up in the rural areas, during those days, you would be able to know how to milk, you would be able to know how to till, you would be able to be given the folk stories back at home. This in itself was learning, and it is still learning. And therefore, we are trying to bring back that particular culture at this particular time when we are faced by this particular pandemic, and that we must be able to make sure that our children are productive, that our children are kept busy. We've seen situations and life-threatening situations, including teenage pregnancies and all this. But now that we have our students and our children being able to engage with our teachers, and our teachers are meant and are trained to mold the young ones. Personally, as a teacher, I know we were given an opportunity to co-create our children. And that is what we would want to do in this particular time, but in a different environment. The environment that we have been doing it is in a school environment. The environment that we are doing it now is in a community environment. When we are in a community environment, we shall be able to learn more than what we would learn in a school environment. This is a situation that we are handling, a situation that we are faced with now. Once this situation is managed, the pandemic situation, and the Ministry of Health has been able to advise us that schools are now able to open, and which we have advised everybody else that by January, and that's what our medical experts have told us, that by January we shall have been able to manage the disease. Our doctors will have been able to learn it more. Our bodies will have been able to accommodate it better. And therefore, by January, we should be able now to have our children in a school environment. And that's when we go back to our normal way of teaching, our normal way of learning, our normal way of focusing now in our curriculum. But this community learning is part of also preparing ourselves towards that particular end, because it is a multi-agency approach of learning. We have Ministry of Health, we have Teacher Service Commission, we have Ministry of Interior National Coordination, And Ministry of Health will be able to assist our teachers to prepare these particular children on protocols that we shall be able to observe when the school environment opens. Okay. So once again, this is a learning environment that is able to address the situation in which we are in now. When we go back to school in January, then we shall be able to adjust and adopt ourselves to that particular environment of learning where we prepare our children for the whole situation of school learning that will lead all the way to the time that we shall be able to present them for an examination and all that. But for now, we are skilling them about life. That's what we are doing now in community learning.
What the ministry has done, sir, is actually very commendable. But what I would like you to clarify for us is, yes, community learning, what will be the content of the curriculum? Because there has to be a curriculum that is going to be taught. What is it?
Thank you very much. Some of the suggested broad areas of learning that I can say includes teaching our children about value formation, about social responsibility, about generally about entrepreneurship, having our religious leaders to be able to assist our children in their religious background. We are having our socio-cultural environment. These are the activities that we are looking at. We are looking at the issues of environment. We are looking at the areas of creativity and arts. We are looking at the areas of language. We are looking at the areas of numeracy. When I say numeracy, it is wider than what we would call mathematics. We are just taking our children to appreciate what it is in all these areas. So once again, we are looking at citizenship. We are looking at environment. We are looking at creative arts. We are looking at languages, and we are looking at numeracy. We are looking at games and fitness, life skills. We are looking at the general issues of home science. How would a kid be able to be assisted to be able to know a few things that we were able to know at our early ages ourselves? The whole issues of assisting and making them appreciate what happens in a kitchen, what happens in a garden. So these are not traditional learning areas. These are areas that we are trying to make our children appreciate the totality of life.
Is this going to be broken down into a timetable? For example, every day, this is what is going to happen between this time and the other time, and taking into consideration the various age groups?
Thank you very much. It is good that you are bringing the question of age groups. So we are going to group these particular children to be able to be in an environment that they can appreciate what they are learning. As a result of one is the age in which they are in, their level of learning. So you are seeing at mostly children between grades 1 and grades 4 being able to be taken, grade 1 to grade 3 being able to be taken in a particular area and being able to be socialized into what they can appreciate. There will be children in grade 4 to grade 8 whose ways of appreciating learning will have been different. There will be learners in our secondary schools whose ways of doing things will be different. So we shall be able to appreciate all these particular levels of learning and the different age sets that are there. So yes, we appreciate this. We take them through learning of almost 4 hours in a day because you not want also to expose these children over a longer time. You would want to be able to give them an opportunity to play, an opportunity to be able to do the motor issues using their hands, using their legs, using their body. So it will be a wider way of appreciating learning.
And how do you observe social distancing and the other measures for COVID-19 in this? I mean, if the children are still going to play, it means that they play with one another.
Now, one thing that we are going to, what I would say is that when we talk about games, it is not really about children being able to crowd in a particular area. You know, they can be taken about how to be able to engage in a particular sport, but not necessarily engaging in the sport itself. What is the sport all about? So that when this situation is eased out, then they'll be able to do certain things. Yesterday, our cabinet secretary for sports culture was able to give protocols in which we shall be able to observe. And, you know, when I started this particular discussion, I say it is a multi-agency approach in delivering it. we have the Ministry of Health, so that the Ministry of Health is able to socialize our teachers in able to deal with all the protocols and procedures that must be kept when we are having these particular children. And once these protocols have been given to our teachers and our teachers taken through them by our colleagues in the Ministry of Health, then they will be better prepared to be able to deal with these particular children in this particular circumstance. What is very critical in this particular aspect is that we would want to engage our children so that they are productive within this particular time of COVID. Because if we leave our children, they will still be able to interact and do that which may harm them. So it is better for them to interact in a way that is now structured. And we are now trying to structure this particular environment through community-based learning. And it is a program that is being handled by various groups of individuals who have knowledge in various aspects that deals with humans at this particular time of COVID. And that's why I'm saying it's a multi-agency. And Ministry of Health is very useful at this particular time because they will continue to guide our teachers on critical aspects that they need to observe as they engage our children in this time of COVID-19.
I'm curious to know details of how exactly this will be rolled out, Dr. Kipsang. In this case, how then, if we're looking across the country, county by county, school per school, how will the messaging be sent out? Bring your children. Will there be a rota? Will there be a schedule? How will they hear about this? And how then will it be rolled out? How do you know where you're supposed to go? Or is it based on the school that you used to attend? I mean, those details seem to be a bit fuzzy.
Now, what is there is that, and once again, I want to go back to what I said earlier. This is a multi-agency approach way of dealing with this particular program. And we have our colleagues in the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. We have our colleagues in Teacher Service Commission. We have our colleagues in the Ministry of Health and ourselves at the Ministry of Education. So what we have done is that our colleagues at the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, because of the wide structure that is there, running all the way from the regional commissioner, the county commissioner, the deputy county commissioner, all the way to our chiefs and assistant chiefs. We use this structure to be able to map our children using the Nyumba Kumi initiative. Then we map these particular children because these colleagues will be able to know the environment in which they are operating from. They are able to know who is in this particular environment and therefore how many children are in this particular area. Let's say if you are in an urban environment and you are living in an estate, you are living in a particular close, then court, then we shall be saying in this court there are 30 houses. In this particular 30 houses, how many children do we have in this particular 30 houses? So our colleagues at the Ministry of Interior will map this out and be able to know, and we are able to register these particular children. The Teacher Service Commission, which they have already done registration, and they have done extremely a commendable job because we have almost registered. By 2 days ago, we had registered more than 300,000 teachers. So this in itself shows the commitment our teachers have on this particular program. So the Teacher Service Commission will be able to map the teachers and be able to know who are the teachers in this particular environment. Our colleagues at the Ministry of Interior will have been able to map out the environment and know how many children are in that particular point, that particular area. We at the Ministry of Education will be mapping out the open areas that these particular children will be able to learn from. And since this is in a community, then it is that particular conducive environment within that particular community that we shall use for learning. It is not necessarily a school environment. It could be a social hall. It could be an open field. It could be a worship area. What we must be able to see is to ensure that this is an area that is open enough for us to maintain all the protocols that the Ministry of Health would want us to keep in terms of social distancing, the 1.5 meters between our children. So our job at the Ministry of Education will be to map out these particular areas to be able to work with the Teacher Service Commission in ensuring that the program is properly monitored. Our head teachers who we have involved, the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, the Kenya Primary Schools Heads Association, will be able to continuously monitor the program and prepare reports that will be able to come to the Ministry of Education and go to the Teacher Service Commission. Our colleagues at the Ministry of Interior will be able to generate reports that will be able to say the situational analysis of where these particular children are and be able to communicate the same to our colleagues at the Ministry of Interior at the headquarters through the structures that are there. So we have established committees that run all the way from the county, all the way to the sub-county, and then they go to a zonal level. A zonal level is where we have a community of schools of no more than 20 schools, and therefore a community of homes within that particular area aligned to that particular administrative structure. And therefore, with these particular committees that we've constituted, then these committees will be able to work in an environment of multi-agency and ensure that each one of them is able to deliver on areas that they are better placed to deliver on. And as I've said, our colleagues in Interior will be able to map out the environment, ensure that every child from that particular area is brought out to be able to be taught by a teacher who will have been mapped out by TSC to ensure that there is a teacher in that environment. We at the Ministry of Education will have been able to map out areas that we can use as learning areas.
Dr. Kipsang, let me just ask this question. Again, against the background of the commendable effort that the ministry has made, with regards to the health concerns where learning is to take place, what level of preparedness in details have been put in place to ensure, what are we planning to put in place to ensure that there is a guarantee of the health safety of our learners?
One is that we are taking our teachers through training by the Ministry of Health on the protocols that are critical for our learners to be able to be safe. We also ensure that in that particular environment there is adequate water so that our children will be able to wash their hands. They will be soap around the same area. And our colleagues at the Ministry of Health will have taken us through the critical aspects that we must be able to maintain. Most our learners will for sure be having face masks. And with all this, we shall make sure also, and we are working with our social partners to ensure that disadvantaged children from areas that informal settlements and all these other areas are able to be facilitated through working with all these partners to ensure that they are safe. But the most important thing is that our colleagues at the Ministry of Health will ensure that we maintain the necessary protocols that ensures, one, our learners are safe, and our teachers who are handling these particular learners are equally safe. We have already prepared guidelines as both TSC, Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Health. And these guidelines have been already shared out so that our teachers, the learners, communities are aware of what needs to be done and what protection that we must be able to provide to our children, our teachers, so that they are safe.
We'll continue the conversation after we take this short break. Dr. Belio Kipsang, the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Basic Education, is with us this morning. We are discussing community-based learning, which is what the government intends to roll out shortly. We know that the students have been at home since the 15th of March when schools were closed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know what has happened during that time and the pressure that the government has had to endure. We know from parents, from other stakeholders saying we need to have our children engaged. So this is the response that the government has come up with, the program that the government has come up with, and that's what we're interrogating this morning. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, at 25 minutes after 7 o'clock. Let's take a break right here on Spice FM and KTN Home, as well as on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice
we're still
FM.
looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, warming up ever so slightly though to 15 degrees. Nakuru at 16 will be partly cloudy through most parts of today. Looking into Njeri, the same at 15 and partly cloudy. In Eldoret, cloudy and overcast conditions at 14, going to a high of 24 today, and the chances of showers in many cities across the country. In Kisumu, we're looking at partly cloudy conditions at 20, highs of 27, with showers expected later on in the afternoon. It's 16 degrees and partly cloudy in Kakamega, likely to continue this way throughout most parts of today, with a chance of thunderstorms later on. In Mombasa, it's 24 degrees and partly cloudy. We'll have sunny conditions later, and in Malindi, it's overcast at the moment into sunny conditions and partly cloudy conditions, and a chance of rain later on, then with highs of 26. Take a look outside into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 21 degrees. It will remain this way for most parts of today. In Dar es Salaam, it's 26 degrees and partly cloudy. In Johannesburg, it's a warm morning, 12 degrees, and we're looking at highs of 19 and lows of 6. In Lagos, it's overcast at 26 degrees. We'll go to a high of 30 and lows of 24.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right, looking at what it presents for us in most parts of the city today. Let's start on Mombasa Road, where it is still quite clogged up for most parts, for parts between the SGR moving then towards Cabanas. It's crazy. Thika Road this morning is not too bad getting into the CBD. There's no traffic jam, actually. It's fantastic. The road was officially opened this morning, and likely that it will not continue. And so all good getting to the CBD from Thika Road, not too much of an issue there whatsoever. Coming out of Westlands, we know that there's a bit of a hold up earlier on, but that is looking much better now. Okay. We had that issue right around Kangemi. It's still because of the construction that is taking place there. Coming off of Jogo Road as well, coming in, Ngong Road is also looking pretty good. And then getting off of Langata Road, going towards Bagathi Way, or then going towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, it looks good. Uhuru Highway then. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
Chilled Spice. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Coming up to 7:30.
94.4 Spice FM.
Spice FM, KTN Home, and www.spicefm.co.ke. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this and every morning is Eric Latiff, Nduh Okoh, and CT Muga. Joining us on the line is Dr. Belio Kipsang. He's a Principal Secretary for Basic Education. Today is Education Tuesday. We are dedicating the show to looking at the various aspects of addressing education during COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Kipsang has just telling us about the program that the government is rolling out. This is community-based learning, and you've already told us, PS, that the TSC has embarked on a program of mapping the teachers, and over 300,000 teachers are already registered, and you know where they are. What I'm concerned about is the timelines, because it sounds like you're doing this sequentially. Why not just do everything at the same time? Because the next thing that you're going to do now is ask pupils to register what grade they are in and where they are. So you already don't, you know where the teachers are. You don't know which pupils are in the areas that those teachers are.
Or you know them?
You also do not know. I'm sure you don't have this information yet, because you said you're going to do that. Or have you done that yet?
Thank you very much, Latiff. One thing I would want to say is that I said we are dealing with this as a multi-agency, in a multi-agency approach, and that TSC, which is the employer of teachers, has the responsibility of mapping out the teachers. The Ministry of Education, we have the responsibility of both working with our colleagues at the Ministry of Interior to map out the children and ensure that there is an environment that they are going to learn in. And I can assure you that the Ministry of Interior, mainly through the structure, the National Government Administrative Officer structure, which runs all the way to the assistant chiefs and the chiefs, together with the Nyumba Kumi initiative processes, is that each one of them and this particular structure has been able and has identified children in every other environment and be able to map these children to a teacher, map these children to a learning environment. So this is running concurrently. It is not that we are registering teachers. We have to start, obviously, by registering teachers so that we can appreciate that in this particular community there is a teacher and therefore can be able to handle these particular children. So the starting point was to appreciate and know that there is a teacher, because we know and we have structures that can easily map out children. And as I've said, using the National Government Administrative Officers, we can easily be able to identify these children through the Nyumba Kumi initiative.
When do we expect
which
this?
We have done.
When do we expect this to start and conclude? The mapping out of children, especially looking at the age groups, because as you're saying, you're grouping them grade 1 to 3, 4 to 8, Form 1 to Form 2, Form 3s and Form 4s.
This has been done. And in some areas, essentially, we gave ourselves up to 2nd of September to be able to adequately and properly run the program. But in quite a number of places, and our officers have been out there checking how this is taking off, in quite a number of places, this is already running. And the mapping of these children has already been done. And I can tell you that our parents and our children have been waiting for this particular opportunity to be able to be engaged. And they are there for part of this particular process. And they are part of it in a way that they are also interested, because this is a symbiotic relationship where the student is seeing the essence of learning and the importance of this particular community learning. The parents are also seeing that the children are being engaged. Mainly those parents who are working, at least they will be knowing that their children are safe. And our officers out there, we've engaged ourselves, and as government officers, our principal role is to ensure that we serve the citizens of this country. And therefore, we all came out to ensure that we map out the teachers, we map out the children, we map out the learning areas. So this has been done. I can give that, and I can assure you this, Latiff.
So when this rolls out, how then will it be mandatory for all students who are in the school system? Because there are some schools that are offering the CBC learning that are currently offering classes to their students. How will this work with now this community-based learning?
Thank you very much. When I talked about mapping, mapping is just wider than just identifying children to be on community learning, community-based learning. When we are also doing mapping, we shall be mapping out those particular children who are engaged on online learning and remote learning. So since we are going towards blended learning, so we are blending it in a way that there will be those who will be on community learning. There will be those like I want to most sincerely appreciate our colleagues at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development who have been running an online system. We have also quite a number of our own private schools who have done very well in preparing online learning. So in the process of mapping, if we map the child to a house and that particular child is already engaged on online learning, then as part of our mapping, we shall have identified that child and we shall be knowing what that child is doing. And therefore, we shall be able to leave that particular child to continue with that aspect of online learning. But if the child at any one time within the learning and within the day would want to join their colleagues in community learning, then that kid will be accommodated just like any other child.
Okay.
So we are not going to say today it is a switch off, switch on affair, that, oh, we are leaving online learning and going into community learning. No. These are all opportunities of engaging our children and making sure that our children are productively engaged.
And
So
does this contribute?
one another.
Sure. Does this contribute in any way, shape, or form towards the syllabus, or is it strictly to be engaged during this time?
Once again, I say learning is bigger than just preparing our children for examination. Because when we talk about curriculum and thinking that we must be able to take our children through the conventional curriculum, then what we are focusing ourselves is about assessment and examinations. But at this particular time, we would want to engage our children in a wider aspect of learning than just preparing them for an examination. And that's why when I started, I said there will be life skills. There will be a whole question of values and principles, citizenship. You know, these are some of the areas which are not necessarily examined.
Sure.
But they are very important for our children to appreciate these particular areas. So we are not preparing our children on the conventional curriculum. It is wider than the conventional curriculum.
Is there material that has been shared with the teachers on how they're going to roll out this program? Or are they expected to decide how they want to conduct the learning? So, for instance, if today we are doing social and cultural studies, is it dependent on the teacher to know how best to do this?
We have circulated the guidelines, and in the guidelines, it is able to give some degree of guidance to how teachers will be able to handle every area that they'll be handling. But you know, our teachers, and myself being a teacher, is that in our training, we are made to be innovative in the way that we can be able to engage and socialize with our learners. And each environment will be different, because when you are dealing with life skills, each environment will be different. The way you will engage our children on life skills in an urban area may not necessarily be the same way that you will engage our children in a rural setting. So we give our teachers also the latitude to be able to be innovative in the way that they discharge this particular engagement with children. But what I can say is that together with the Ministry of Education, together with Teacher Service Commission, we've been able to develop guidelines that will be able to support our teachers. We are running from this week, we shall be running online socialization of our teachers on how to handle this particular community learning. So it is something that we are all learning. You know, none of us was prepared for COVID, but we have been able to adopt in dealing with COVID. And it is the same thing that we are doing in the education sector to ensure that every other day we are able to make sure that our children are kept safe and that they are properly engaged so that they are productive and that we are able to save them from the vacancies that are there within society. One thing that we've been able to see is that if we are not able to engage our children, they are more exposed to either gender violence, or they are exposed to other aspects, including drug and substance abuse. So the best way of ensuring this does not happen is ensuring that we engage them in a way that is productive and useful to these young.
You know, on paper, it sounds very good, actually. As you explain it, it sounds very good and doable. But like everything else that we see with the government, when it comes to implementation, then we usually see some missing gaps. I want to ask a specific question. So say, for instance, this particular village, you've mapped teachers and say you've seen that you have 2 teachers in a particular village, but then you have over 20 students of different age groups in this same village. How will you ensure that these teachers can serve these same students? We have children who would fall in the age group of 2 to 3, 4 to 8, Form 1 and Form 2, Form 3 and Form 4.
Now, one thing that I would want to correct is that, you said some programs, when they are put in paper by government, it sounds good and sometimes. But I can tell you, these are things that we properly engage ourselves. And together with our stakeholders, we went through the motions and how this can be done. And in areas that we may have one teacher, and we have more than 20 children, we shall be able to break these particular children into groups, and a teacher will be able to go around being able to give them activities that they can do and that they can deal with us themselves. Because there will be group learning, but maintaining the social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher will be able to give some of these learners what they can take home and be able to work with their parents when they go back home.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that we all have to adopt. You know, Latiff, even ourselves in our work environment, we have to learn and adopt to this particular COVID environment.
That's true.
I'm very sure even in your own working environment, you have had to adopt to this particular COVID environment.
Yes.
And it is something that we continuously keep learning, and we continuously improve. Even this community learning, we shall continuously learn from it. We shall continuously improve it so that we can perfect it to make sure that our children benefit from the process, that the community within which we are living benefit from this particular engagement, because we are doing this for the benefit of the child.
Okay.
And we shall try every other time to make it better.
How long is this process, or rather, how long will this engagement last? If you talked about September 2nd for you to get, back the first kind of information that you were looking for as regards to registration and such. So now, in terms of actual engagement of this community-based learning, between what periods are we looking at?
The learning is already on. I can tell you, in some environments, it was quite quick because you are dealing with a smaller environment. On the bigger scale environments, we are continuously doing this so that by the second this has been implemented across the country, we shall be certain that everybody is in the program. We are going to run this program as long as the COVID challenge is putting our children out of school, because it is important to engage our children. But we are hoping, and our colleagues at the Ministry of Health have given us indications. We all listened yesterday in our news that within the next 3 weeks, we shall be knowing whether the decline that we are now seeing is whether we are now starting to realize the flattening of the curve. Because once we have this flattening of the curve, then we can be able to assure ourselves that our children will be in school sooner than we thought, and that the environment will go back to normal, and that we shall be able now to prepare our children in the way that they expect and the way that we all expect to prepare our children. Because this is an investment, and when we are investing in the future, we invest in our children. And once the investment becomes regular in a way that we have always done it, and we are sure that this would happen by January, the way that our colleagues in the Ministry of Health is advising us, then the community learning will be able to run within that particular time that our children are excluded from their school because of COVID.
What has the ministry done to ensure that students who come from areas that were, say, ravaged by floods and for whom normalcy has not returned, and looking into the future, what if between now and the beginning of the new year we still have more rains? What has the ministry put in place to cater for such students?
Thank you very much, Latiff. And I would want to say that, yes, nature also came in, and there were, even as of now, there are still rains. We have problems in regions like Lake Naivasha, Lake Baringo, Lake Bogoria, where the lakes have risen and they've swallowed, and the flooding has taken some of our schools. And we are already engaging with the community. I will be in Baringo on Thursday to go through an assessment. We've gone already to Marakwet, where our school was swept away. We know one of our schools, the Terry Girls, was totally swept away. The community and the leadership of that particular area have identified a new site where the school will be constructed. We have already provided resources. We are working through an interagency approach again, a multi-agency approach again. We are going to work with the Ministry of Public Service so that we can take advantage of the human capital that is already there through the National Youth Service to be able to reconstruct this school which was totally swept away. We have already started mapping of schools in Baringo. 7 of the schools are already under the lake. And on Thursday, we shall be sitting down with the leadership of Baringo, with our colleagues at the Ministry of Interior, so that we can be able to relocate these particular schools to safe areas. And we have almost 5 months. And we are sure that with the multi-agency team that we are working with, that we shall be able to deliver these schools before the schools open in January. Our colleagues at the Ministry of Public Works are already working very closely with us to make sure that we deliver on these particular schools and take them to several areas that our children will be able to go back to school like all other children across the country in these particular areas that have been affected by flooding.
And speaking about the safe learning environment, even before COVID struck, the ministry had gone around the country conducting an audit on the safety of schools, and you had closed some schools and said that these schools needed to up their game and bring their structures to facilities to a level that can accommodate teaching of students. Has that happened?
Now, when we went through this in January and the end of the year last year, we wanted to make sure that our children learn, and not only learn, but learn in safe environments. And therefore, we have to make sure that these environments and every other area, we have standards within which schools must live within. And that when we are registering these schools, and quite a number of some of these schools which were having issues, and some of them and most of them were found in informal settlements, you would find that most of them were not registered. So we wanted to take them through the processes of ensuring that they are registered, but while they are registering, that they meet the minimum standards of being a school. Most of these schools that never met the standards, we were able to map out the children and take them to the nearest public school which was meeting standards. And therefore, we can say with certainty that all the children who are in some of these particular schools were taken to schools that are mainly public schools, and they are learning as we talk, though they are home because of the COVID situation. Yes, our schools will require a lot of investment, both public and private, so that we can be able to take back our children in January. There will be questions of social distancing. And I can say as government, we are investing almost 6.5 billion shillings to expand the infrastructure in our schools, to improve the infrastructure in our schools. As for this week, we have disbursed for our secondary schools more than 2.7 billion shillings to use for improvement of the learning environment. We have also released almost 200 million to our primary schools, also to improve the environment. Like today for our primary schools, we have disbursed more than 1.9 billion shillings, which will go to both improvement of the environment, paying our workers. And when I talk about workers, it includes our BOM teachers, it includes our security officers, it includes all the support staff that we have in our schools. For our secondary schools, we have disbursed more than 16 billion shillings to be able to assist both, as I have said, in improvement of the environment, paying our BOM teachers, and also ensuring that our national hospital insurance scheme that is meant to support our secondary school children also run. So as we are talking, we are also preparing ourselves into ensuring that we are ready to open schools when January comes.
I know we're coming to the end of this conversation, Dr. Kipsang, but at the same time, COVID obviously caught a lot of people, everybody, unawares. And in a lot of cases, there's downtime. And just from what you're saying, it's not that there's downtime at the ministry or downtime around the country when it comes to education. But is it not also a unique opportunity now to look at factors that can be addressed when it comes to making sure that even if something does happen in the future, that we will not be caught at a standstill again?
And thank you very much. I can assure you that one thing that we are doing as government and appreciating what we have gone through is that we are improving our system now on online learning and blended learning so that into the future we shall be prepared and better prepared to be able to switch off to a different mode of learning when need arises. We are investing at the necessary equipment and environment at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. We are working with the private sector. We are working with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. We are working with quite a number of partners to ensure that we are better and ready. For our universities, we have encouraged them that online learning is the way to go. And that even as we open our universities, as we open our technical training institutions, that we have to invest in alternative ways of delivering our curriculum, so that our curriculum delivery will not only be the face-to-face way of doing it. We must be able to change with times. We must be able to invest, so that even when our schools open, certain lessons will be delivered online, whether there is a problem or there is no problem, so that we can continuously be able to improve this alternative way of delivering our curriculum. We shall be retooling our teachers to be able to adapt to the environments that may arise into the future, so that we are better prepared to deal with this situation. Because COVID has taught humanity that, yes, life can be brought to a standstill. We didn't know that one time we cannot be able to travel from one country to another, but this has happened. And also in our education sector, we've also learned that education can be disrupted in a major way. And therefore, going into the future, we have to look at all permutations that we have to take and to appreciate, if this was to happen, how do we deal with it? We've been engaging with our international partners, mainly UNESCO, to be able to look at better ways of handling emergencies as we go into the future. We are working with UNICEF to ensure that we are better prepared to deal with emergencies in education.
Right.
And emergencies in education is quite wide, as we have always said and already indicated, including flooding, including war, including disease, and all this. And that is why when it comes to even education in areas of refugee, we have to deal with this and appreciate it as part of education in emergencies.
Dr. Kipsang, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. And we just want you to pass on a message to the other stakeholder that you have not engaged with that is now watching, and this is the parent and the student. What message would you have for them this morning?
Latiff, I would want to assure you that we did engage. And before we rolled out this program, we had an engagement at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. And you know, the parents have an association, and they are what they call National Parents Association. And the leadership of the National Parents Association works with us to make sure that they are part of this process. In fact, they are the ones who are encouraging us to go towards that particular environment. But once again, I would want to encourage our parents that we must get a way of ensuring that our children are safe. And the only way we can make our children safe is to ensure that they are engaged. And to make sure that they are engaged, then we have to get a structured way of engaging them. And that structured way of engaging them is what we are now having as community-based learning. So I encourage all of us that let's support this. Let's work together to ensure that our children are safe and that our future is safe, because the future is the children. And we can only have that future if we ensure that our children, in these very difficult times of COVID, are safe, mostly the culture. Because if we don't do it, we shall lose our culture. Thank you.
Asante sana.
Thank
Dr.
you very
Belio
much.
Kipsang is a Principal Secretary in the State Department of Basic Education. Asante sana for joining us, and we'll hope to have another conversation with you soon, especially after September when this formally rolls out, to just hear what is happening on the ground.
Thank you very much, Latiff. I know today we were to engage ourselves mainly of COVID, but we are still engaging ourselves on COVID as it affects education. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Keep it right here. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. Time for a quick break. And when we come back, did I say Blake?
You did.
All right. Okay. I meant break.
You said break,
I said break, right?
but,
Yeah.
but we heard Blake.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are listening to. When we come back, we'll also be talking to Akello Misori. He is the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. And as we go into this break, we'll also be telling you about the Captain Cargo Information Portal by the Kenya Ports Authority. Keep it right here.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Captain Kargo.
Right. So, what happens next, what we're looking at in terms of documentation, because there's quite some documentation, but Captain Kargo has simplified this so that we know exactly what it is that you should be receiving when you're importing. Remember, we're looking at documentation for importation of cargo, right? So just so that you know, this is what I should be receiving, this is what I need to be sending out. So after you've received your import declaration form, your shipping agent, remember, this is the super duper guy or gal who is helping you get this stuff to and fro. So they send you what is called the cargo manifest. Rather, they send it on your behalf to KRA to make sure that all your relevant taxes would be sorted out. Now, KRA then approves this management and shares this with the folks at Transit Cargo so that KRA knows that the relevant taxes have been paid, the relevant payments have been made, and then the folks at Transit Cargo also receive this and they know that everything is all right. Now, this approved cargo manifest is then distributed to all the other partner government agencies that need to have this. So this is KPA, it goes back to KRA, it goes back to anybody else who would need to have it. So you're safe once you know that all this documentation has been shared with all relevant partners. So that's another bit of information that you need to be aware of in terms of where your documentation is flowing to and from.
All right, you can find all this information on www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Kargo, the information portal by the Kenya Ports Authority.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You know, just hearing the plans that have been put in place by the government. Mapping of teachers has happened, 300,000 plus have already been mapped. Mapping of schools and students has happened in some areas, is still happening in other areas. Have you seen those officers? Has your Nyumba Kumi rep come to ask you to take those records out?
All this is supposed to start in September.
By the 2nd of September, all this should have happened.
And we are on the 25th of
August.
Okay. What I find interesting is the total number of teachers who are registered by the Teacher Service Commission is something like 430,000.
Yep.
So if we look at the numbers that have already registered, there's a deficit of 130,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big number. It's a very, very big number. So essentially we're saying that between now and the 2nd,
we expect 100,000 also teachers
to begin with,
to register.
It's doable.
There was also the issue, and I guess we should have asked him that. There was the issue of the teachers who are either elderly beyond a certain age or who have underlying conditions, and whether they were going to participate in this.
I suspect they won't. Because remember, it's a multi-agency project.
Yeah.
So
Ministry of Health would
yes,
not be
one of the things
comfortable.
that they're doing, even as they determine who should do what and where, I think this is where the Ministry of Health will probably come in and say, no, we have an exclusion criteria here.
So we're coming to the top of the hour. Keep it right here, because in the next hour we're going to be having more conversation. This is Education Tuesday. It's 8 o'clock. Blah, blah, blah.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so Mombasa Road still clogged coming out from Cabanas, then towards General Motors. A little bit of a clog up right around the SGR. We're looking at other areas now, as well as we saw coming out of Westlands previously. There was an issue, but it's not so much. There's no traffic on Thika Road today. Absolutely amazing. The gods of traffic have smiled down on Thika Road today, and everybody is rejoicing in hallelujah. Okay, so what else are we looking at? Coming off of Jogo Road. Not so bad. However, the Eastern Bypass, Utawala, at an absolute standstill today. Not sure what exactly the issue is, but we'll look into that. If you're in the area, let us know. People to stay away or approach with caution. Uhu Highway is a chock-a-block. It's bumper to bumper all the way from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, and it's headed all the way to Westlands. Into the CBD also from Uhuru Highway is not going to be a walk in the park. At Uhuru Park either. Okay, so let us know what it is that you see. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
After 8 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM, Nairobi 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu and its environs. If you're in Nakuru or its environs, 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Njeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. We live stream the show to the world as well on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We're also live for the next 1 hour, also on KTN Home. We have decided to dedicate today's show to education, looking at the various aspects of education. Children have been home since the 15th of March 2020, and the Education Ministry has already declared that this is going to continue until the end of the year. And also beyond that will depend on whether the Ministry of Health can give an advisory that allows learning to resume in schools. This is physical learning in schools. Meanwhile, the government is rolling out the home-based learning. Community-based learning. So home-based care, community-based learning. Let's just call it community. Let's not. Yeah, so one and the same. Community-based learning. We were speaking to the Principal Secretary for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, and now let's speak to one of the union's leaders, and this is Akelo Misori, who will be joining us shortly. We'll be speaking to him shortly. He'll be joining us on the line, talking about the same issue of education. So the PS was telling us that the stakeholders were engaged. Head teachers, this is the primary head teachers head boss and the secondary head teachers boss. The two unions, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, the KUPPET, have also been engaged. The Kenya Parents Association have been engaged. So all stakeholders.
Everybody's ready to go.
For the kids.
What I wonder is what is the level of engagement really? I mean, they've
Meetings.
been engaged. Yes, meetings. And all the interests of this diversity was taken care of with this
And
meeting.
met.
Okay.
And when did this occur?
No, he gave us an indication
Yeah, sure.
that we actually did meet.
Yeah, they did meet.
And
No,
I don't think it was one meeting.
It
I would
can't
hope
have
it-
been
no,
one meeting.
I hope it was not.
No, I don't think it was. But again, there's a question of perspective. From a ministry's perspective, they met the threshold that was required for them to be able to move forward.
Yep.
But is that view shared by other stakeholders?
And it would be important then to know whether this has also been shared. You as parents and as students as well, we know that there are students who are listening to us. You can call us in at some point and let us know whether you understand what's going to happen in a couple of days' time. Already it's starting in some parts of the country. It's a very good program, if you ask me, because you're ensuring that children are now actually engaged.
The details that have emerged so far regarding the content of the curriculum actually fall in the category of what I would call exciting. Things that are actually important, but are not in the learning curriculum that our day-to-day learning has had.
Yeah.
But one would argue not just of equal importance, but of significant importance. Things that people ought to understand, young people ought to understand and know. Yes. And for that, we must say it's commendable.
It is.
It is commendable.
It is. Well, like Dr. Kipsang was saying, COVID caught everybody unawares.
It did.
It forced people to look back and see what can we do. It we have participated in that issue of raising the concern about what is it exactly that the Ministry of Education is doing. It's unacceptable that children can lose an entire year without any learning taking place. Dr. Kipsang has come and told us, well, we're now going to have that learning. So we rolled out, of course, the e-learning and the remote learning. This is using KICD curriculum on online and radio and mobile phones. But with the realization that not everybody has access to this, we have to do something else.
I want to be encouraged and excited that even beyond coming up with a strategy in the now for what would happen over the next 3 or 4 months for learners at home or in their communities, I want to be encouraged that this is not just to fill a gap only, but that, you know, it would look forward to times when something like this would happen again and the country would be prepared, because that has been the hue and cry of quite a number of parents, that the response or the answer or the solution that was given then they're not really happy with, because couldn't there have been something else that would have made sure that children would have been adequately engaged when it came to matters education, whatever it was. We understand that you can't physically be in a class, but then is there something else that could have been done, you know? And that's the question, as opposed to shutting down schools and saying, okay, well, until we hear from the Ministry of Health, we're going to shut down.
Yeah.
We've seen innovative creations around the world of what people have been able to do, of what ministries, governments have been able to do to keep children engaged. We should be at that place, COVID or not, whereby introduction of new strategies should be in place to make sure that education continues regardless.
You know, the thing is, when one says we were caught off guard, I think the extent to which we were caught off guard, I'm not referring to anybody, it's just us, can only manifest itself in the efforts that are being made to now try and see how best we can make of this clearly terrible situation. And Mother Nature hasn't been very, very useful in this regard. Mother Nature has tended to thwart some of the efforts that one may make, or has made them a little more difficult. But then again, there's something that the Principal Secretary said, which I liked. Said they are working to ensure that some of these alternative ways of learning are in place irrespective of COVID.
Yep.
So whether it's COVID or not, they are working with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to ensure whether it's online learning, whether it's learning through radio, all these things, the radio bit I've added. He didn't say radio, I'm that who's saying radio. But when he said all alternative, I assume
that's
radio.
an alternative,
Yes,
yeah.
it is. That these things are in place so that we are never caught in this situation where we are figuring out what to do again. That the plan B is in place and we're able to actually implement plan B should the need arise. And the need will arise because floods are not going to come.
Oh, yes. There will be floods. There will be. Now, you hear schools in Baringo have been submerged.
Some swept away.
Some swept away in West Pokot. And this will happen over and over and over again. Let's bring in our guest now in the show. This is Akello Misori. He is the Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. Akello, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us once again, and karibu to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
So we were speaking with the Principal Secretary for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, and we know that the government is already rolling out this community-based learning. From the very onset, what are your views on this program?
Thank you so much for having me on this program. Let me say that the program was well thought of, and it is what would salvage a very dire situation, as it were, in Kenya today, because as the Cabinet Secretary could have said, the Principal Secretary could have said, the issues which are here are things which we did not anticipate, and therefore, going forward, nobody had anticipated that schools would be closed for our whole academic year. This one is unprecedented, and therefore, engaging the youth in readiness and to allay the fears and anxiety which will come with all this would be the most appropriate. So in our view, we supported this move, and we have always called and already asked our teachers to cooperate so that they engage the learners in preparedness to have life skills, understand the values, understand the community, and also understand that this is a state which is similar to a state of war. Therefore, nobody should take it as something which is a punishment.
Mr. Misori, we are informed that there is some curriculum that is actually going to be used in the engagement of our pupils. I believe you've had a look at this curriculum, or your team has looked at this curriculum. Do you think it's comprehensive, or is it something that probably will need a little tweaking as time goes on?
Let me just dispel the rumors that there is no curriculum yet which has been approved to undertake this program. It was basically to be an ad hoc arrangement to have learners engaged on issues of values and so on. But if the cabinet, the ministry and the Kenya Institute of Curriculum and Development is already developing one, then we are yet to be exposed to it. But I think for it to be uniform all over, I think it was okay. But we have not been exposed to that kind of curriculum.
So in your understanding then, how is this going to be rolled out? How are your teachers going to engage with the pupils? You as a post-primary, so we're talking about Form 1, Form 2, 3s and 4s. From where you understand it, how are they going to engage the students?
You know, one aspect which must be understood is that this kind of arrangement is very informal. It does not take place in a setting like a classroom situation or in a school situation. In the neighborhood where children live or where the youth live are also parents, and these parents include among others the teachers who are also in those neighborhoods. Remember, maybe the principal secretary did not indicate accurately what's happening. The teachers who are supposed to engage these youth wherever they are not basically the teachers who teach them in their schools, but they are teachers who stay with them in that neighborhood. So what this one calls for is basically a serious commitment and creativity among the teachers to collect and to maybe assure the learners. And that is why the multi-agency is involved, so that the Nyumba Kumi, the provincial administration, and the Ministry of Education are working in line with the teachers to just first to identify the learners, to assure the parents that the person who is engaging the children is actually somebody who is having the competency and the capacity to deliver any information that is useful and in readiness for the purposes and in preparation for the opening up of schools in
It sounds like that in itself is going to be something that will take a lot of time, Akello. It sounds like what you've just said in terms of making sure that the teachers who are available at the community level presently are able to pass on this information to learners, those who would have the skills to pass on life skills. It sounds like something that would take a very long time to be able to do. Do you think that can be covered now? Because from what you're saying, it doesn't sound to me like that exercise has been carried out.
Maybe just to dispel any fears is that teachers are the only persons who have the capacity and the competency and strategy to deliver any form of information to learners. Remember, the children have been home, and there is already the outcry that there is increase in crime, increase in substance and drug abuse, and also the teenage pregnancies. Children are only safe in the hands of teachers, those who are still within the age of school going. And the idea of this will take time is a far-fetched fear. What is there is that teachers know what is useful to the category of learners.
I understand that, Kello, but if I may interject just at that moment, you've said that what is being taught here are life skills, for example. Add, different subject matter from what they would necessarily study according to the syllabus. So we're looking at almost extracurricular, right? Almost to that level. And you've said,
it is extra, extra,
and you've said just now there would be a need to identify teachers who are in those particular communities who can pass on this knowledge, because their regular teachers are not in that place right now. That's what I'm actually asking.
That is the reason for which the Teacher Service Commission has been asked to map out that where are your teachers. If once that exercise has been going on, and as we stand, currently the teachers are already identified in the communities where they are. What now remains is now the start of that. In fact, in some areas, some teachers have already engaged the learners. But the one which is formal, which is closer to being formal, is the one which I think the Principal Secretary was talking about, that the rollout will definitely be in September.
So registered so far 300,000 plus teachers. Are there some teachers that you know of who are not willing to participate in this program?
The teachers who are likely not to be engaged in the short run are basically those teachers who are involved in official programs like those attending the workshops on what we call science and mathematics training organized by SMART. So those are the only teachers who are likely not to be found.
Okay.
But the rest of the teachers are ready and they are available for this purpose. In fact, my own chairman, who is not currently practicing teacher and is a member of parliament, in the estate where he is, I visited him last week. He already organized a group of youths, and that was a hybrid of primary and secondary school goers. And they had a lot of nice time. Because he himself is a footballer, he was playing with them football and advising them that let us continue. Life will continue after this. This is something which is there because it found us in this circumstance, but it will go. Once it goes, we shall resume learning.
From your understanding of this community education or community learning, the resource person that will probably be at the helm of ensuring that the students actually learn is a teacher. But will they be using resource personnel like, say, community leaders and people within the community who have some knowledge and could impart life skills to these students as well?
That is not within our purview, but the reason for which multi-agency approach was adopted was basically to make the whole exercise have confidence from the parents and the community that the people who are engaging the learners are those who have the capacity and who are genuine and who can do the exercise. But I don't think in the absence of teachers, there are also church leaders or religious leaders who can also advise and counsel the youth. So I don't think they are excluded in this. This is an approach which we must look at from the perspective that in the situation of war, what would each one of us give? What would each one of us give? The teachers are only critical here because these are learners who are undergoing a program which has been disrupted. Now, if they are in the same community, can they be of use of sorts? And that is the reason for which they are not going to teach mathematics, science, or physics, or history, or geography, but basically things which are definitely can make people survive in the circumstances like this.
Just paint for us a picture. How would a typical session go like? Assume it's a teacher who's dealing with the age group of Form 1s and Form 2s.
That one is, it is not perfect. The session would start by maybe the children or the youth expressing their fears. And the teacher would definitely facilitate that discussion. They will be discussing their fears, how they would do, how they even see the environment. And then secondly, they will even start by cleaning their own environment. After that, they can be involved in some games.
So this is basically just keeping the children from home and engaging them in some way and using the teacher as the person who's engaging them. I can see this working maybe for the younger children, the ages, the grades 1 to grade 4, for instance, or maybe up to grade 8. The teenagers from Form 1 to Form 4, Do you see them actually attending this on a regular basis?
I think that is the reason for which now the teachers should work with them. It is not something supposed to be compulsory, not something very rigid based on how the school timetable is supposed to look like. By the way, even where I stay currently, whenever I walk out, I see a big number of youth, some of them playing basketball, some of them jogging around. They lack something to do. And, you know, at this particular time, the parents have also gone to look for what can sustain the family. It is something which, for the older ones, it would even be perfect. They will be involved in debates. They will be discussing many things. They will be sharing. And besides sharing, they can now be, the teachers should be able to identify with them the kind of activities which are useful.
We want to open up this conversation as well to the audience on 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600, because we'd like for you to engage us and tell us, what do you think about this community-based learning that is being rolled out by the government? What fears do you have? What wins do you see it bringing to the education sector, and also to just the lives of these young ones who are at home and who've been at home since March? So we'll open up the phone lines for that, and as well as our social media handles, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It broadcasts every morning, every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, and 7.9 in Mombasa. We're also in Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi. And also this morning, we are live on KTN Home. Time to take a quick break. We'll be back shortly at 22 minutes after 8.
It's warming up ever so slightly in Nairobi. 16 degrees and partly cloudy conditions likely to rule the day, and the chance of showers, a slight drizzle perhaps later on. In Nakuru, 16 degrees and partly cloudy as well. There also a slight shower expected in the afternoon. Nyeri is pretty frosty this morning, still at 14 degrees, and where there were showers earlier this morning, there's a bit of a break, but they'll come back later, then experiencing highs of 24. Let's look into Eldoret, where partly cloudy conditions this morning, currently at 15 degrees. And in Kisumu, partly cloudy conditions at 20, going to a high of 26 today, and a chance of rain later on in the afternoon, as is in Kakamega, where it's 17 degrees currently and experiencing partly cloudy conditions and a chance of rain later as well. In Mombasa, it's partly sunny, mostly sunny this morning at 24, going to a high of 30 and coming down to a low of 23 today. Malindi, also partly cloudy conditions and a chance of rain later with highs of 28. Into Kampala, where at 24 degrees, it's partly cloudy throughout this morning, a chance of a shower in the afternoon. Dar es Salaam, overcast at the moment, but will go on into partly cloudy conditions later with highs of 30. Johannesburg, warming up, still at 12 degrees and likely to be that way for most parts of today. Sunny conditions all through, then with highs of 18 and lows of 5. And finally for now in Lagos, where it's 26 degrees and partly cloudy. A chance of thunderstorms later in the afternoon, going to a high of 28 and lows of 23.
Chilled Spice.
All right, taking another quick peek onto the roads this morning. Yeah, the Eastern Bypass today is what is chock-a-blocked. At Utawala, complete standstill this morning. Unfortunately, still don't know why. It's moving very, very slowly now, whereas before it was absolutely packed. Thika Road today is every driver's dream because no traffic there whatsoever today. Congratulations to Kenya for completing that footbridge. That means now you should be fine moving in and out of Thika Road. Getting then off Mombasa Road is not too terrible either. It's moving along swiftly, not too much of an issue. Uhuru Highway, however, getting into the CBD is still bumper to bumper, all the way from Nyayo Stadium right through to Westlands. Moving very slowly this morning, guys. So that's what we see. That's what we face. Let us know if you find an alternate route, or if you find somewhere where it's absolutely jammed and don't need anybody else coming in that area. Let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
26 minutes after 8 o'clock, it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're having an education conversation this morning, and on the line with us is Okello Misori. He's the Secretary General of KUPPET. KUPPET is the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. And just before we went to the break, we were having a conversation with Okello. You want to ask him a question?
I do. Mr. Okello, you mentioned that this teaching experience will have a certain informality to it. So if there's informality, what structures will guide this informality? Because for any learning to take place, some form of structure must be there.
I think this is where we have been caught up in a lot of anxiety, because the Cabinet Secretary announced, and then it has been followed by a circular by Teacher Service Commission. What is there is that the assumption is that in every village where the learners are, already they are in that village. They know each other.
Yep.
What was lacking in this arrangement is that there was this element of authority. That why are you collecting and organizing a lesson when the government has declared a protocol of meetings are not supposed to be there? And that is the reason for which we are having what we call multi-agency. The Nyumba Kumi is supposed to give that assurance. The provincial administration is supposed to give that assurance. It is not supposed to have a very strict adherence to the school structures where after their lesson somebody is coming to supervise. It is something which is supposed to operate as activity in an emergency to manage transition from this COVID-19 situation to the anticipated normal period, which is coming in 2021, and basically to address the salient issues which are there, because we have to rescue the youth who are being lost to crime, as I said earlier, drugs and substance abuse. And more importantly and most strange is that we have had registered quite a number of teenage pregnancies. This is going to make us lose the youth.
Yeah.
So the element of informality is that it is not supposed to have where people have pens, books, and so on, and they write. It is supposed to be an informal session. For example, a small gathering, just like a chief's barasa. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to the phone lines. Solomon is calling in from Mombasa. Solomon, good morning.
Good morning.
You have a question for Okello Misori?
I have a question or an opinion.
Right.
There is something you said about those extracurriculum that they are not that fundamental. That fundamental as opposed to formal education. I want to tell you, Mr. Okello, these extracurricular activities, or what you call life skills, are the most important than having that degree level of education. That's why you find most people who are graduates.
But Solomon, did he really say that?
No, I'm saying there was a question that you have asked,
Yes.
CT, about the extra.
Yes.
The extra things based that
Yes.
they are not that really important, isn't it?
No.
No?
Let me tell. You can correct me.
Actually, the conversation is that they are being implemented now because they are considered important.
Yeah. Now you see, for example, these life skills are most important than basic education. I can have my degree, I don't get a job. But if there's a skill I learned, maybe in carpentry, in rearing of cows, chicken, those things can make me have a livelihood, as opposed to having my degree, which is just a piece of paper. Because when it comes to life, in life, what is most important is how much value am I giving to my society.
All right.
I can't be an accountant.
All right. Point made, Solomon. Thank you very much. Let's hear from Eric in Suba. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have a question for Akela Misori?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
My question is...
Yes.
Good morning, Latiff.
Eric, go ahead. We can all hear you.
Yes,
Okay, I think Eric has his radio is still on, so it's confusing you. Erica, if you can just switch off your radio and then we'll have the conversation with you. And you'll ask your question to Akela Misori. Akela Misori is on the line. He is a Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. We are talking about the rollout of the community-based learning that's about to roll out in some areas. It has already started, and this is what the PS for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, told us earlier. Akela Misori is here saying, yes, indeed, the members of KUPPET are already participating in this. They've registered themselves for this, and their union is endorsing this particular program and saying the importance of it in terms of engaging, keeping the youth engaged, especially during this time. The vices that we've seen in the community since the schools were closed on March 15th, substance and drug abuse and the rest, are things that we need to address as a community, and therefore rolling out this program is very, very important. Let's go to Kisumu now, where Abubakar is on the line. Good morning, Abubakar.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
All right, ask your question to Akela Misori.
Now, my question is,
yes,
in case maybe the students fail to attend the sessions, say for a week, what should the teacher do?
So how should teachers deal with absenteeism, Akelo?
I think we have been reading a lot in this exercise, which I don't think should worry everyone. From March to date, we have not had such a program, and therefore we seem to be so much anxious of what is going to happen when this thing happens. What should happen is that the children are already in the community. They are involved in so many activities. The ones who are mapped as living in a neighborhood can have access to a teacher who is also mapped to be in that neighborhood. And therefore, the security of the children is known. That, for example, if a student leaves or a child leaves a house to go somewhere else, then there will be no question where this person went, because the teacher is there. The Nyumbakumi person is already aware that the person who is engaging this person is Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. So that is the thing. It is not supposed to be having the rigid terms of reference like we have timetables in schools where we have got strict rules that you must do this and so on. But of course, it is a program. By the way, what we are trying to bring on board, or what is going to be introduced here, is what other countries are doing, especially even in normal circumstances, that when students are away from school, they are at home, there is a social support program which is there. This is basically a social support program where they will develop their own rules, they will develop their own programs, they will regulate their own activities, and things will go on.
I guess
so
where this is coming from, sorry to interject here, Kelo, I think where the Abubakar's question is coming from is from a parent's perspective. Your child has left home and you expect that they have gone to engage with a teacher. And yet the teacher has not engaged with the student. So who answers the question? Is it possible are the teachers going to be doing a register and ticking a register to know that this particular student, I'm expecting these students to come today, and so such a student did not come, therefore they can give feedback to the parent and find out why has so-and-so not appeared in my sessions for the last 1 week.
Eric, in fact, if I may add to yours, what if, as you say, there isn't a rigid or a regulated format for ensuring that learning takes place, the timetable? How then will a parent be confident enough to let the children leave because you are not certain?
Yep.
I think, let me repeat it for the second time, that the envisaged program is not supposed to have the rigidity which school has. I have also said that the teacher in question may not necessarily be the teacher who is teaching this youth when they are in their normal schools. This is a teacher in the neighborhood and who is also part of this society. How does a society punish its errant members? I have said they are supposed to have a generated understanding among them. For example, according to the envisaged program, the teachers should have between 15 to 20 at most. That is a very small number to know they can understand each other and so on. What is there is that we know that teachers are professionals. They are not supposed to use this opportunity, and they are not supposed to leave these children to do what they want. Let me put it very clear. Just like in the village where each one of us come from, when you meet any errant child or any errant youth, you can as well tell that the child, you know, what you're doing is not correct.
Yep.
This is how we should do it. It is not a programmed thing, but that information will stick to the learner. Unless that learner that youth is not ready to accept you, how can you help it? That one is now the sharing which is in the community, that so and so children cannot participate in this program because they find it useless.
But if it isn't programmed, how will we be able to even understand the success or the lack of success thereof, or the outcomes of this particular program? I mean, there must be some benchmarks we hope to attain. And for this to happen, there must be some program. There must be some element of, if I may use your term, rigidity.
What is here is that we have the expectation that when we finish the year 2020, we shall be having all of our children in school in good shape. That is the benchmark which is supposed to be there. And from the word go, you realize that this was not anticipated. Kenya has no regulation about education in an emergency. And if there was an education in an emergency, then we would not resort to community teaching. But in the absence of this, do you think we can just watch things as they are, and then we have a whole generation lost, and we have a very high school dropout when 2021 comes? We don't have students in school or children.
But all those factors that you've just mentioned then are reasons for some elements of rigidity. Those things that you've just mentioned.
This is a containment policy, and it is informal. It requires understanding. It requires just volunteers to come out to assist in both ideas and also in asking to making the whole process to succeed.
If we talk about things like, you know, trying to get rid of these vices, because the reason why this was put in place was because there's so many things that were going wrong when children were not in school, right? And the people have now, you know, gone to their own vices, done their own things. And then we're saying this is being introduced to make sure that there's something being put in place to curb a lot of this. Now, if everybody's left to their own wills, to their own whims, to basically do whatever, it's not compulsory, and then we're not going to force anybody to do anything, then it seems like it really is neither here nor there. It really doesn't matter. How will learning take place? How will you be able to judge the successes of this? Or because some people would say then there's no point. You'd rather then just wait until January when schools open.
I think I've been very clear, and I said that the group, once identified, especially once the teachers are identified the way they have done, then the learners have been identified. The entire cohort of a group, or in that matter, for the sake of the success of the program, are basically to develop their own regulation. This one may not strictly have where a situation whereby you have to expel people who do not want to attend classes, or you have to reprimand. There could be certain regulations, just like when you attend a workshop, you have to develop certain rules, rules which may not necessarily be be adopted by another group in another hall. But these ones are basically to help you within the same group. Yeah.
Mr. Okello, are you satisfied that your teachers, because you do represent these teachers, have been adequately trained to meet this challenge?
Teachers are professionals, and they are the ones who have the capacity and the energy and the strategy to disseminate information to their learners. So therefore, I don't think what they are being asked to do is too much. In school where we teach, we are judges, we are policemen, we are doctors, and so on. We guide and counsel the youth. So what is there now is even easier. The only difficulty which is there is that you are living in a neighborhood. These children are not necessarily you are the ones you teach and you'll be given to teach in school. These ones are informally assembled. But once they identify that you are a teacher, they will have to listen. I think I'm satisfied that teachers are adequately prepared at any time to handle any situation with the youth.
Okello, what would teachers like to see in place for the future? Because like you said, unprecedented, caught everybody unawares. Nobody was ready for this. But I think it's also, again, pose the same question to the PS, that it is clear that something needs to be put in place so that whatever happens, there is always a fallback for how learning and education can continue. From a teacher's point of view, what would you like to see? And how would you then contribute towards that?
This is a very, very important question for me this morning, that in going forward, this COVID-19 has really caught us unawares and has really opened our horizons for us to think and to start navigating on how we will go forward. Once there should be a legislation in terms of education and developed policies in terms of education in emergency. But another thing is the level of preparedness of our teachers in their training colleges or universities, that the curriculum must be readjusted to incorporate things which we have always ignored. For example, you remember in this nation, the Jubilee administration, when it came on board, it came on the principle that they were going to give even the learners the laptops or tablets or whichever. And this one now have become very handy. But you remember during the same period, students were banned from using phones in schools because of certain things which were there. So we need an investment in this area of internet connectivity, electricity, and also to broaden the scope of the teachers' understanding of the environment more than what we have now. They prepare the teacher that every teacher coming from teachers training colleges, from the university, must be competent in IT, so that relaying lessons online will not be a challenge like what we now see. Remember now, even schools which could be in a position to provide lessons online could not do so, because how many teachers in those institutions have the IT component as part of their training and competency to organize lessons and present in an online format? So these are things which are there. We need now to think not just out of the box, but even without the box itself. We must be ready to chew the bullet. That this thing has really opened horizons for us to have a conversation on education in an emergency.
Do you have any plans or any proposals that as a union you've come up with on how to, first of all, bridge the gap with the existing teachers, and then going forward on how to ensure that teachers who come out of teacher training colleges are IT competent?
Besides talking about matters of security, we have already proposed to the Cabinet Secretary Education and the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development on what we expect to be included in terms of the curriculum content for going forward after this COVID, because this thing has really opened our underbelly very badly.
There are those who have raised concerns about the teachers who are employed not by the Teacher Service Commission but by the various boards of management. The relationship between the TSC teachers, the BOM teachers, and especially now when you're rolling out community-based learning, how the two are going to work. What are your views on that?
Excellent. And it is important also to note that one of the issues which have been a real problem is the teacher numbers in schools, and the teacher pupil ratio has been a real challenge. And we have education, and education which is a right to every child, and very significant for this economy. But the government has not prioritized that we need to have sufficient numbers of teachers to handle the children in our public schools. So our public schools have become even the largest number of, our public schools are a semblance of big private enterprises, because majority of those who transact the business of teaching in these schools are those who are called BOM teachers. The relationship cannot be smooth, because here you have staff who are doing the same duty with the others, yet they are inadequately paid. Like in this circumstance, it is good the government already saw it wise to also give stimulus to schools to pay the BOM teachers. You remember, you are paying one teacher 60,000, but the other one you are paying 15,000. Yeah. They are living in the same neighborhood, they are teaching the same number of lessons, but one is underpaid simply because this person does not belong to Teacher Service Commission. And because the Teacher Service Commission is also given a restricted number because of underfunding. They are underfunded to employ. They are only regulating the numbers, they are paying the numbers that they have been given to have. So going forward, as part of the reform program in this post-COVID, because I am seeing a situation where private enterprises like schools, which also form the bulk of those who have given the government the ease in terms of congestion in schools, are likely to close down, because if they do not operate for a whole year, they may not come up in January. So it means that the government must come up with a program to incorporate in their mind that we must employ almost a similar number that we now have. The economy must be able to contain that. These are difficult decisions to make, and will have to be made, because the new circumstance when we open will not be the same. We must ensure that the teacher numbers are improved significantly, and you have to contain them with better pay. So those are issues which must be addressed.
But these are matters that I'm sure your union has been talking about for quite a while, and yet the number of trained teachers who are unemployed is probably even more than those who are actually employed. Do you actually see this situation ever being rectified to the point where we have the adequate student-teacher ratio that we know we must have, and that people who actually are trained and can be employed are employed?
It is our choice as a nation. It is going to be a choice as a nation. Because why do you have to spend a lot of money training a personnel? You know, training a teacher is not a walk in the park. It is very expensive. Now, when they are out of college, you make them border riders. This is going to be a choice for Kenya to make, that what priorities do we have? We must, if we want competent teachers, if we want motivated teachers, if we want to have a generation which is focused to develop, to spur the growth, then we must engage those people whom we have trained. It is a challenge, yes, but our focus, we have to do with what we have. That is why sometimes you see us dancing on the streets, that we have got a lot of work and therefore you must pay as well. But now, it is not just going to be an issue of pay. We will have to insist that you must improve the teacher numbers.
Let's talk about the relationship between your union and the Kenya National Union of Teachers. For some time now, we have seen some sort of acrimonious relationship between these two complementary unions. Why is that?
I don't think it must be an understatement to say that there's an acrimony. The relationship between COPET and the KNUT is not that bad. Whatever could be there is just sibling rivalry, because one person want to sit on my chair, the other one also complain about that. But that one does not affect the profession per se. Well, I know the community has had leadership issues, and that one does not touch KUPPET in any way.
Mr. Okello, the question that Eric is asking, I think, hinges on one simple thing. If the voices of NAT and KUPPET were one, don't you think you'd have a stronger and a more powerful bargaining position as teachers?
It has always been one. For example, remember...
but Mr. Okello, there are two unions. That already tells you that they are not one.
No. Our thought processes are one in terms of how we navigate the challenges we have in the profession and how we want to improve the terms and conditions of service of the employees. That's one. But now, when it comes to other things which I've already mentioned, like this person is taking my chair, that one can bring issues.
But Mr. Okello, KUPPET would never have actually existed if there wasn't this feeling for the longest time that NAT only took care of the interests of primary school teachers. Was this not something that was always being brought up in discussions?
I hope maybe you will have opportunity to read my book, Teachers' Unions and Labor Relations in Kenya. I will bring it one of these days to your desk. Maybe it will answer most of the questions you ask. But one thing which is there, it is true, at some stage there was laxity. And the coming up of KUPPET even made KNUT a more vibrant union than before, because this one was just a giant which was sleepy. But now when we came and we were little dogs and we were barking, they realized that there was work for them to do. And for between 2001 to where we are now, when KUPPET has existed, you can realize that that is the period that KNUT has reached as the most important contribution in this nation, either in policy making and so on. You remember when we were discussing the National Constitution in 2010, it was the voice of the teachers which made the Teacher Service Commission to be created as an independent commission. Remember, we had shot the previous constitution because it did not give us the TSC as an independent commission. So you can see how a unified voice has worked before. And I don't think we have left that bit.
Okello Misori, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us today. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that we'll be able to beat COVID so that you can come and join us in the studio once again soon. Any final message to your member teachers and especially to parents and students?
Thank you so much for having me around. But what I would wish to tell the teachers is that let us give back to the society, because let us sacrifice, because this is a state of war. In a state of war, each one of us is called to come out and join the forces so that we beat the enemy. This is an invisible enemy, and therefore we have to fight it with all the tools that we have. For now, let us keep safe. Let us keep safe. Let us wear masks when we are in public, and also keep distance, but wash our hands thoroughly. Thank you so much.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
Misori, Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET. Thank you very much for joining us. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. Thank you for joining us between 7 o'clock and now coming to 5 minutes to 9. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home, 7 to 9. But this show broadcasts every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM. Spice FM is on 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, Njeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7. The conversation continues even in the next hour, where we shall be having more conversation about this education, the education sector, what has unraveled because of COVID-19. What we have seen, our education sector is basically caught unawares, just like very many other sectors, just to be fair. But also the kind of response that we see from the ministry and other stakeholders in this. Good morning. And now 5 minutes to 9.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
So there's a portal by the Kenya Ports Authority called Captain Cargo, and Captain Cargo is basically an information portal. The KPA realized that it's important for all its stakeholders to understand some of its basic processes, some of the tariffs, and also where the KPA operates from. So kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo.
Yeah, so today we're looking at a lot of the documentation that is important when it comes to imports. And we've gotten to the point whereby, you know, you've passed and you've gotten your import declaration form. You've gotten all of the documentation that you need from government partner agencies. And this includes KRA, this is KPA itself. And then we're getting to the point where everything has been loaded on vessel. And so we're looking at specific documentation then that is necessary because there's quite some of it. And Captain Cargo just letting us know what is important and what you need to have, because at every step of the way you will be required to give this information. So at the last bit, in about an hour or so, we come and look back at the last bit of documentation that is necessary and what gets your cargo in to the country.
kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And that is what we'll also now be discussing in the next hour. We'll be joined by a KTN journalist who understands matters of education and has been covering education for quite a while. So we'll be looking at what is it that happened. So what do we know so far? What we know is that schools were ordered closed on the 15th of March 2020 because of the outbreak of COVID-19. And since then, students have basically just been operating from home. However, the government immediately rolled out distance learning through the Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development, and this is the radio programming and also happening on TV and online. But obviously, we got to realize that a majority, a very substantial number of students and pupils were not able to access this because they don't have access to the internet or they don't have access to the devices. This include radios, TVs, or even mobile devices. So with that realization, now the government is rolling out community-based learning, where the community-based learning is basically going to be teachers come from somewhere. So in a village that a teacher comes from, maybe a teacher teaches in a certain district that is another county that is not where they live. But now since schools closed, they went back to where they live. So teachers have just basically been registering with the TSC and saying, I am teacher C.T. Muga and I live in Muhoroni and I teach in Mombasa. So now we know where C.T. Muga is, and we know that C.T. Muga is therefore able to teach some students or pupils around Muhoroni area. And this is what now the government has been doing. We are going to be discussing this a lot more in detail in the coming hour. We're coming up to 9 o'clock. C.T., you want to remind us today's proverb?
Yes. The frowning face of a goat cannot stop its owner from taking it to the market.
The frowning face of a goat cannot stop its owner from taking it to the market. It's a very mean owner.
Or should I have said the smiling face of a goat?
Or the crying face of a goat. The sad face of a goat cannot stop its owner from taking it to the market. This is akin to kelele za chura haziwezi mzuia ng'ombe kunywa maji. Any other translation that you may think of that it comes close to this, Spice FM KE on Twitter, please let us know. Good morning, this is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation at 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay,
Nairobi.
so almost officially out of traffic hour. We don't see many issues except from what we see happening still on the Eastern Bypass right around Utawala. That's opening up just a little bit. But Thika Road behaved beautifully today. Mombasa Road didn't give us too much of a headache. Neither did it coming out of Westlands or Langata Road, or Ngong Road for that matter. However, Uhuru Highway is still bumper to bumper, guys. This is something that we're just going to have to take in. I think it should be fine in a short while, but for now, it's just going to take some patience. So traffic overall today was good. It was good. Unless you get stuck somewhere else, do let us know. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
So we'll be joined by Franco Tieno. He's the education journalist of KTN. He's the host of a show called Dau La Elimu. What does that mean?
No idea. You're asking me? I could make up my own things.
Please make up your own thing.
Make up your own thing. Let's hear this.
If I were to take a guess.
Yep.
The state of education?
Get wild, yes.
The state of education? No?
Just think about KPA.
Portal. Education portal. Platform.
Well, platform, yeah. Vessel.
Oh, vessel. Education vessel. Elimu is education, right?
Right.
Got it. Okay. Elimu, Mwalimu. It's all in the same family. Got it.
Salimu.
Wait, what? No, it's not. You're trying to throw me off. I see you from far, CT. I see your throw off, and I raise you, and I'm awake.
Hakimu.
Go away.
Taslimu.
Taslimu. All of those things. All of them are education.
Liars.
Okay. So looking back at what we've heard this morning from the PS, from the head of the secondary teachers union, basically it's a post-primary education teachers union, the program is being rolled out. The program is not as formal and rigid as we normally have, school-going days where you're following the syllabus, and the syllabus needs to be completed within a certain time. But there are basics that are going to be rolled out in this program, teaching student values and other life skills. And this is basically just keeping them engaged, as opposed to just letting them stay. And the education ministry is...
They have told us some wonderful things, but man, there's a disconnect somewhere. There's a disconnect somewhere. There's a lack of clarity. There's clarity in that they want to have these classes. There's clarity in that teachers have been registered. There's clarity in that there's community involvement, or they've engaged the community in understanding how these things should be done. But in how they're going to carry out these functions, there isn't adequate clarity.
Yep.
That's clear.
Same question asked to the PS, same question asked to the teachers union head, and it's not clear what the teacher is expected to do when they leave the house in the morning. Yes. They just know, so the guidelines have been issued to the teachers on what the broad-based areas that they should be doing, they should be looking at, and also that you should not engage a student for longer than 4 hours. So it's going to be 4-hour engagements on a daily basis. But from the beginning to the end. So where do you start?
Are you meeting in the football field under a tent? Are you meeting in this particular classroom in this particular school, which is normally not your school? Because I think that's clear. They're going to be engaging teachers who will not be teaching the students or the learners who they normally engage with, right? It'll be others. So this mapping then hopefully would include such details of which school am I going to be in this week?
I think that's also the role of the community leadership. Remember that structure that he mentioned, that starts from the Nyumba Kumi head, going to the headman, the chief. That local community committee should determine, all right, so we have these number of students here, these ones are in this age group, so we have 50 who are in between the age group of grade 1 to grade 3, and they need their space, and then we only have 2 who are in Form 4.
We'll allocate them this, that, or the other. Okay.
So I guess that the role of the community has to be really involved in that, in determining where the students go.
Again, that is not clear.
That's it.
You see, it's a plan, it's a good plan, but in the absence of clarity, there'll be also a problem in implementation and outcomes.
I really...
What I'd love to hear now is that there have been meetings in communities. So, for example, people calling us and saying, yeah, we had our meeting as a Nyumba Kumi, and we already...
And us as this community, this is what we
already started to have these conversations, and this is what we're planning to do. Because we understand what the expectations are. We have read the expectations, and we've been given the leeway to adapt to our own unique circumstances, and that's what we've done. But I'm not hearing that.
No, I want to be able to say that it's more than just something that was needed to be done by virtue of the fact that schools were closed. And I want to be able to, I think everybody would want to say this is a program that actually was implemented and it worked, that it proved to be successful. But it seems that already the indicators are pointing at that there would be some kind of confusion along the way because people just don't know what they're supposed to be doing in terms of teachers.
Yep.
People don't know what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to learners. People don't know what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to parents and where they're supposed to be sending these learners on a daily basis. And if we're talking about the 2nd of September, granted, we might be in Nairobi thinking that nothing is happening. It would be good to hear from other parts of the country that actually, you know what, this is happening. In our community center, there are actually classes that may have started because we heard from the PS that this has already begun, that there are some learners who are already being engaged. And whereas it's compulsory, whereas it's not compulsory,
therein lies another problem.
There's a problem. Because then how are you going to be able to say that all this work that you did for the last however many months or weeks, how then are you going to be able to say that it was successful? Because it's kind of like, oh, okay, come if you want to, if you don't want to, but you've engaged 300.
What's
you're doing e-learning. That's okay.
Okay,
just
you don't have to come.
Or you come
and you're in a
Tuesday.
national school. You're in a national school, you're in a public school, but you guys are engaging in online learning and you're a teacher for science. It's okay. Don't come. So we'll pull it from somewhere else. Do you see?
What is clear is that it's a work in progress. Yeah. What is clear, all right? Yeah. So even as we ask some of these questions, I doubt very much if we'll be able to be given answers because those who are supposed to give you answers are themselves seeking those very same answers. They're trying to tweak it and figure out how will this thing actually work. Remember, what they plan to actually engage the students in is something wonderful. But it must have a curriculum. You're going to teach.
Must have a program.
You have to have.
It doesn't matter if it's
have to.
It doesn't matter if it's life skills or citizenship or statehood.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what it is. There's got to be a guideline that you're following.
Every Tuesday, it's water management. Every Wednesday, it is this.
Forestry.
So even the students know and are prepared.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let's bring in the other teacher into this conversation. Frank Otieno, KTN education journalist. Good morning.
Morning, Latiff.
Welcome to the show, Mwalimu wa Dua Dau la Elimu.
Baba. Dua is a different thing.
Tuomba Dua. Now, you can explain first. Let's start by explaining to Nduh what Dau is.
Oh, yeah, Dau is a Swahili word meaning a water vessel. So this is where when you are traveling in water, in a water mass, you have to use a vessel. So Dau la Elimu, Elimu is so wide, education is so wide that you need some kind of a vessel that will enable you to navigate through the turbulence in the sea or in the water body, and you travel and you get that knowledge as you move, as you travel, and that's Dau la Elimu.
So Dau is a vessel.
Yes, a water vessel. It's a Dau, D-H-O-W, Dau.
Oh, like an actual Dau.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what a Dau is.
They took the word from Swahili.
Oh, yes.
Okay. You see, now these gentlemen here did not explain it properly. Thank you,
we told
Frank.
you.
We repeated.
Like an actual Dau, D-H-O-W. I get that.
Yes.
Okay.
True.
Mwalimu, you've been following this conversation since schools were closed. What did I say?
Today, man, your problem. CCT after this.
The close is important. School is important. Now just link them so that it makes sense.
Hey, okay.
So schools were closed, Mwalimu, and we've had students at home for this length of time. Now the government wants to roll out, or is in the progress of rolling out, this community-based learning. From your interaction with all the stakeholders in this sector, what is your take on this?
Thank you, Latiff, and your colleagues. What we are having on the ground is different from what they're talking about. And, in Kenya, it is easier put on paper than practiced. Early this morning, I was talking to a colleague of mine with whom we taught some years back before I joined Newsroom. And the gentleman tells me he's in Nairobi right now to join his family. His wife works in Nairobi. Yet he practices teaching in a school in South Nyanza down there in Migori County. Because the TSC rolled out this program of community-based learning, he decided to register somewhere in Kasarani in Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's also confused. He says since he enrolled, he hasn't heard any word from them. He doesn't know what's going on. He's just waiting. At the same time, he doesn't know how it will be practically, because he's wondering what kind of students is he going to meet, where is the venue, what are the resources. Okay, the program is well put on paper. The learning outcomes are put there. But he's saying the surrounding, where the students that are surrounding him there, he's not very familiar with them. It will take time for him to interact with them, to get to know each other, so that they are now on the same page,
But Mwalimu, if a teacher is transferred, that's the same experience they have. If a teacher leaves college and is taken to a school,
he doesn't know who they are.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the training a teacher has ought to prepare them for exactly what you've described.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but you see now this one is a scenario where it's so abrupt and things are moving so fast. There's no structure that is really making them feel comfortable with what there is. And I could see even the PS himself struggling to convince the nation that this thing is really successful. Well, you said it rightly that a teacher should be able to teach anywhere, anytime.
Yes.
But as we speak right now, this is a teacher who is teaching some girls' school in South Nyanza. Now you have him in Nairobi, maybe close to some slums where education that is supposed to be there should be non-formal setting, which is now currently called UPBET, or in full alternative provision of basic education and training. So the environments are really conflicting.
That is why teachers are trained in education psychology. He ought to be able to manage this quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, your friend is not getting out of this one. Your friend, but what I hear you saying though is that after going and registering and saying I am a teacher and this is where I am currently based, he hasn't had any information coming from the TSC or the Ministry of Education or any other quarters telling him this is now what is going to happen when this starts.
Yes, actually, it's true that if nothing is coming out clearly in form of communication to them, then again, I think TSC is in a way trying to justify the salaries being earned right now by teachers, because salary should be earned. You don't just receive a salary. So they have to be seen to be working and to be putting something in place to ensure that teachers are engaged. And that is what you can see. Even Akelo Misori was also struggling to say there that teachers are there, they're going to work, but it's not really clear on how things are happening.
So, I mean, is that what we're looking at? Isn't that the fear, though, then, Frank, that it's just, it looks as though it would be something that's being done for the sake of doing something?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The government has a way of making things look smooth. Nothing is happening. Nothing wrong is happening. And as we speak, right now, when you ask me if students are safe at home or at school, I don't know which answer to give you, because the situation that we are confronted with right now is a pandemic called COVID. But this COVID, while we are closing schools, that they can't be in schools, why are we again telling them that they can as well assemble somewhere and just interact in a very non-formal way? So it beats the logic. Why schools are still closed?
Actually, COVID requires you to be a bit formal. Because, yes, and to be structured. Because, for instance, just if you are to be in a learning setup, there's a certain requirement that you must have. Just a sitting arrangement. Now, that sitting arrangement is formal. The process of teaching, whether it involves the safety that is required during this period or whether it is the subjects that have been included in the curriculum, for it to actually be taught, there is some formality that has to be there. It just can't be ad hoc. Otherwise, no learning, no meaningful learning will take place. So, as far as I can see, the government has a plan, but it has not fully matured.
But why would this not be a very straightforward thing to do? So you've come up, you already have the learning outcomes.
It has moving parts, and those parts need to come together.
But why are they moving?
First of all, the moving parts is you are getting teachers simply because they come from that locality and they happen to be there. You want them to teach.
Yep.
So you've registered them, understood.
Right.
You've mapped out students, you figured out all that, fine.
Yep.
You've mapped out places where this learning can take place. All that has been done. We are told that they have had community engagement or they have had public participation, whatever you want to call it. But now the actual teaching, the moment you say it's informal, it's understood it's informal, but there has to be a structure for that informality.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yes.
Where are the moving parts?
Everything that I've mentioned.
When the experts are sitting down and working out this, they already know that, one, we have teachers and we have a standard number of teachers. All right, that's what we are targeting. They also know the number of students that they have countrywide.
They do.
Already known. Now, what we just need to know is how many per village or per local community.
Then throw in the involvement of the community. This is now new.
Bring in the community.
Yeah.
It's okay. But as long as you've come up with these learning outcomes, is it not possible for you to say, all right, so this is what we expect, and then this is how we shall conduct?
Do we know what the curriculum is? Is it something that we can discuss and say this is the curriculum? We have an idea of what the curriculum should involve. Then we're told teachers have been trained and they're still being trained. Do we have details? Is there a curriculum for training these teachers so that we understand what they're being trained in and what the expected outcomes for this training should be?
And isn't that what the Ministry of Education and KICT should be doing, KICD?
They may very well have done it. I am talking about the lack of clarity as to what has actually been done, because this is part of the preparedness that we're talking about. Yes.
And I get you completely.
Yes.
What I'm actually doing in support of what you're saying is wondering, why would we have this kind of confusion over this at the planning stage? I'd rather that we had the confusion at the implementation phase where we're saying that, all right, so we realized that this one teacher was expected to understand a couple of things, and then they have expressed their weaknesses in some areas, or they are overwhelmed because it's one teacher and they then have to deal with 20 or 40, well, not 40, they have to deal with 100 or so.
Well, then to answer that question, it has to then look at intention. And what was the intention of this? Was the intention...
Keeping the students engaged.
Just engaged, exactly. Was the intention to have something in place that would really make sure that, students continue to learn? Or was it just to keep them engaged, to keep them away from any kind of danger? If you look at that intention, then you would be able to see that the planning would have been rolled out in a much different way. And if there's a problem at the planning stage, then you can link it directly to what was the point of all of this in the first place.
The thinking behind it is good.
Very good.
I like
absolutely
the
very good behind it, yeah.
Yes, it's something actually excellent. But again, who was it who said that our problem is never in documenting what we want to do, it's in the implementation.
Yep.
Because this is what we're really discussing here. Okay, we've got it. How are we going to implement it?
So how do we do it? Frank, from your interactions with the stakeholders, is there confidence that this is going to be a success?
Even if you ask me, it should be a successful program because the intention, as you put it, is well intended. And if you look at the structuring from TSC, the way they even looked at secondary section, how they should be handled, we are moving away from the cognitive domain of learning, and we are now engaging our learners to interact with the environment. We bring out themes that maybe talk about even the current issues, for example, COVID-19, things to do with creative arts, games and fitness, life skills, home science, mathematics and financial literacy. So all that, it is well intended. Only that we need to have to identify those people who can do that, because not every teacher has got a strength in a particular area. We have a teacher who is really endowed into matters to do with sports and maybe music. So there are some teachers who are also just introverts. They're just close to themselves. They just want to be in class and teaching. We have teachers who are outgoing. They like dancing with kids in the kids. Yes.
You do.
We are not asking them to go and address a public rally. We're just asking them to deal with the students.
Or another, we ask them to take children to the music festival.
Yeah.
Just inculcate this knowledge, and that's where that curriculum comes in. Because if you're saying you're going to engage them in this variety of things, okay, what aspects? What do you start with? What is the end point? What do you expect the students to have understood at the end of that learning process that they're going through?
Yeah. Because it really shouldn't be that somebody's just going to go stand in a group of students right now and start teaching them about life skills. Honestly, there should be some kind of guide that is going to be followed. Yeah. And so that's why it's got to be a little bit formal. It's got to go beyond just, well, we wanted to keep learners engaged for the next 3 months. There's got to be something that they're gaining from this. It can't just be for the sake of doing it. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, these guidelines, Frank, do they give this detail?
Yeah, there's a circular from TSC, which is well elaborate and talking about primary schools from grade 1 to grade 4, class 5, class 8, where a teacher is expected to teach life skills in terms of values, discussing on COVID-19, facts about COVID-19, impact of COVID-19, and then, of course, the next day they can talk about poems, stories, songs, and games in that locality.
Let me ask a specific question, Frank.
Yes,
that particular circular that you speak of, can one make a lesson plan out of it?
Wonderful. Yes, it can.
Is that the expectation?
Yes, because, Eric, when we talk about learning or training in teaching, teachers are trained to handle cognitive domain of learning, psychomotor domain of learning, and affective domain of learning. And maybe if I just broke down that, cognitive is about academic knowledge, which you and I, Eric, were really used to when we were learning. We were just taught about exams. So this program is kind of trying to run away from that, so that you don't just engage this learner in that kind of environment. We are now going to the psychomotor domain of learning, which is now the one that is now being stressed by TSC and the Ministry of Education right now.
Okay.
You stress on the skills. Do you know of a student who loves singing, playing, that kind of thing? Then the third domain of learning, the affective domain, which now brings about attitude. Whatever you learned in school, how does it affect you in your environment and how you interact with people in the community? So this program has actually brought out very nice issues, very good, well-defined segments, which eliminates only the first domain of learning, which is cognitive. We don't want to bring issues to do with exams, physics, mathematics. No, we want things to go practical and so that they enjoy learning.
We will take
a
look at
learning.
We'll take a look at a practical, maybe age group of grade 4 to grade 8, and see what they're expected to learn in a week, right? So just study that circular as we take this break, take a look at the weather, and then we come back. Mwalimu Frank Otieno, you're going to teach us. Assume that we are students of grade 4 to grade 8. So teach us from Monday to Friday, and let's see the practical implementation of this program. We are speaking with Frank Otieno. He is the KTN News education journalist, host of Daula Elimu. And we want to take a look at what's happening weather-wise, and then we come back and continue this conversation. Good morning. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz,
All right,
neo soul,
and Nairobi. Still mostly cloudy conditions. We'll see a high of 23 and lows of 12 today. Mostly cloudy in Njeri at 16, highs of 21 and lows of 13, and chance of showers later on in the afternoon. It's going to be wet in Nakuru as well. 22 the high and lows of 12, where it's partly cloudy now at 17 degrees. Mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret, 16 degrees, highs of 19 and lows of 12, showers expected later. And in Kisumu, 22, currently partly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 18, and yes, showers expected here as well, as are in Kakamega, 23 the high and low of 14, currently partly cloudy conditions at 19. Mombasa is now experiencing light rain showers at 26. It's going to be a rainy day throughout today. Highs of 28 and lows of 23. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 27. Highs of 28 and lows of 24. Let's take a look in Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 19. Highs of 25 and lows of 18, with showers expected later. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 26. Highs of 31 and lows of 22. It's mostly sunny in Joburg at 15 degrees, and the temperatures are rising slowly. Sunny conditions expected today, with highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy in Lagos at 24 degrees. We'll see lows of 22 and highs of 28, with cloudy conditions later. Paris is raining at 16 degrees. It'll continue so for the rest of the day. Highs of 28 and lows of 16. Where in London, it's mostly cloudy at 16 degrees. They'll have rain showers later, with highs of 22 and lows of 15. And finally in New York, just round about Tuesday morning, 34 degrees and scattered thunderstorms for most parts of the day, with highs of 34 and lows of 19.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Tuko na mwalimu katika show ya leo, ukumbi wa situation. This is the situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation CT. So say situation room in Swahili then.
See what you've just said.
See? In the room is CT Muga. Nduh Okoh. Joining us on the line is Mwalimu Frank Otieno. He's a KTN News education journalist. Mwalimu, how do you say that in Swahili?
Say what?
Situation room.
No. Let's leave it. No. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Let's now talk about it. But the situation that should be talked about maswala ibuka, maswala moto sana mnaongea hapa kuhusu taifa la Kenya.
Haya, sawa, tumekubali. So, back to the conversation.
Back to the maswala.
Yeah, maswala ibuka. Right? You were to just take us through the envisaged rollout of this program and how teachers are supposed to deal with the students. And you just said, if we take because they're going to be grouped grade 1 to grade 3, grade 4 to grade 8, Form 1s and Form 2s, and then Form 3s and Form 4s are going to be put together in those clusters. So in the cluster of grade 4 to grade 8, for instance, what exactly are they supposed to learn?
Yeah, let me look at my circular here, because they have put it very distinctively that you cluster them according to maybe age sets or age groups, so that a learner who's in grade 1 does not really feel out of place when interacting with the grade 8.
Yeah.
And let me just see. Yes. Community-based learning guidelines. We have what I have with me on my desk here is about on secondary schools, and if you would allow me just to take you through that.
Yes.
They are stressing on 8 thematic areas where citizenship is one of them, environment, creative arts, language, games and fitness, life skills, home science, mathematics, and financial literacy. So that, you just make this learner appreciate that while he's in grade 2, they can easily compare notes with somebody who is in, while he's in Form 2, he can easily interact with somebody in Form 4 on equal terms regarding citizenship. Because today, if you ask even our learners the meaning of our national anthem, there's a lot of rote learning. They just cram. If you ask him what that line is, the line talking about E Mungu nguvu yetu, oh God of all creation, bless this our land and nation. They just cram. But if now you engage them in a very informal way, and the teacher makes it in kind of a song, and they appreciate the national anthem, and they know what this really means for this country, it will.
Mwalimu, you do know that "Oh God of all creation" does not translate into Kiswahili. Mungu nguvu yetu.
That's what I know. I knew you'd think that. I knew you'd think that.
If you're cognizant, then let's carry on. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So the structuring of this circular is such a way that.
So the question that CT asked: would now a teacher use this to create a lesson plan?
Yes, he can.
So you're saying the circular has details as to what you should follow?
Yes.
Say
exactly.
under water management or whatever it is you have there, they tell you the thematic areas should be this, and the other.
Yeah. In fact, for example, if you talked about selection of cleanliness, we are talking about dressing, grooming, soap, detergents, spirits, and so on. How you should go about laundry at home, to keep your environment, your bedroom clean. All that is put in point form so that the teacher interacts with the learners in a very interactive way. And the learners are also asking questions and even cracks jokes and ensures that you give them examples right from their homes. How did you wake up today? Did you even study your bed? Talk to us about your bed. Do you even have a bed in the first place? And then they laugh it out,
the citizen rebate that you mentioned, I understand. A standard 1 student is an equal opportunity citizen like someone in Form 4. I understand that. But then what I'm thinking of, are they going to be taught in the same space? Or are we going to put them in spaces that are suitable to their age groups?
Yeah, that is why there's clustering in terms of grade 1 to grade 4, then class 4 to class 8. So that when we talk about, there's a way in which you can approach a certain concept of learning when you now address maybe citizenship to a child in standard 1 or grade 1. Not the same way you'll do it to a child in class 8, because
even a child in class 4, Frank, you will not. Class 1 and class 4, there's a massive disparity there.
Yeah, those are now the teething problems that are coming with the arrangement. It should be addressed by the ministry, I think.
What should we look out for now, as those who observe these matters? What is it that we should be looking out for example, in the next month, the month of September and October, to be able to start gauging whether this is going according to plan or whether it's flopping and it needs to be revised?
Yeah, of course, in education there is a quality assurance. So I expect that the ministry should now engage the quality assurance officers in this. How they will do it, I don't know, because teachers are scattered all over the country, and some teachers are not in their normal settings. I told you of that teacher who's from Migori is now in Nairobi. So how will they ensure that this teacher is there? But then again, they have said that it is not formal. It should be informal. Yeah. It's not compulsory. So there's also a lot of civic education in this, and maybe that's where now the ministry should really use the media to bring out these issues very well by using this show right now. We are talking about this issue. They should come to Daule Limu, as we talked about. We talk about issues of education. Yeah.
So Frank, we've been told the many things that it is not. So what is it?
Sorry?
We've been told it's not formal, it's not compulsory. So what is it?
Just participatory.
Something to do.
I mean,
yeah,
look, mwalimu, ebu tuambiani ukweli hapa. What sort of learning do you think is going to take place?
Honestly,
if in the setting that we're just describing here, it's not compulsory, it's not formal, it's not. So what are we doing exactly?
Thank you. And actually, because learning should be structured, it should be
yes,
formal. So that's where now the challenge is. Yeah.
I think when you bring in the chief and you bring in the headman and you bring in the Nyimakumi and you bring in the whole community, it has become compulsory.
Yes.
Let's not. Let's call a spade a spade.
Let's
just call a spade a spade. Chief.
Nyumba Kumi.
Nyumba Kumi. That thing has become compulsory. And now here is the community involvement. What they don't want to do probably is they don't want to make it sound like schools are open. Because when you make it compulsory, then the interpretation by the community would be schools are open, so you're going to school. So why are you only learning for 4 hours? You should be learning for longer. So it's about the community to understand. And I think this is where the gap comes in. The implementers of this program ought to have a word with the community. And throughout the fight against COVID-19, community involvement is one that we are seeing is an issue. If the community was very well involved, they'd be the ones who are making all these decisions. They'd be saying, all right, so these are the teachers that we have.
Eric.
Yeah, let's take a break, Frank, and then we can come back. We'll also open up the phone line so we can open up the conversation as well. We are discussing the community-based learning that's being rolled out by the government. What is it that you have heard in your own neighborhood? Have teachers in your neighborhood come and told you that, yes, soon we'll be asking you to send your children to this particular facility? Have you seen the Nyumba Kumi engaging with you to map out the students, map out the available classrooms or even learning spaces that can be used? We'd like to see whether this is actually happening at the community level. Good morning, 24 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads this Tuesday morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Not much. It's looking good, guys. Not much of an issue any longer, rather. So traffic is moving well in most parts of the city. I don't think we're going to experience the problems that we're experiencing earlier on. So good, yes. Most people have reached where they're going. Probably not going to see heightened levels of traffic until later in the day. So, yep, enjoy it. But be careful. Where there is traffic, just be patient. You'll get out of it soon enough. You can talk to us. Spice FMKE on Twitter.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
So, Frank, as we went to the break, you wanted to contribute and say something.
Yeah, I wanted just to tell you that the government has realized that there is this bitter truth about the souring cases of teenage pregnancies.
Yeah.
And they are now in a clever way bringing in this structure so that we engage our youth in a very good way so that they don't find themselves in this kind of mess that we have witnessed in the recent past. So to me, I think it's an idea that is good, only that the structuring is a bit worrying, but they have a good idea to ensure that our youth are well engaged and they don't engage into this kind of unnecessary teenage pregnancies.
So basically, this is looking at it from the social side of things. Let's go to the phone lines. Jimmy Kimani in Malindi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, fine, thank you. Otherwise, what I was trying to put, let me just go straight to the point.
Yes.
I am a teacher. I am not registered anywhere. I am an artist. And from the last 3 years, I built a small structure where I've been teaching children to know their talent. Even in this time of COVID-19, we have always been keeping distance. And I've been passing art skills to draw, painting, even on the walls. We even had Jeff Koinange come to Malindi, and he really supported us a lot in this activity. And this, I'm not being paid by the government, neither by anyone. It's just the urge to see how I should pass these skills to the children. Because even after going to all the schools to 5 and 6 in Uganda, having a degree in Makerere, but I'm not doing what I went to school for. I did art just to add me more marks in my points to go to the university and also to go for my Form 4. But I came and realized that there is when things go well on you, as long as you can convince more people on your art skill, you can get a lot of funds or money from this business. So me being like a teacher, how can I benefit? How can the government recognize me? Because I've been painting a whole street in a place called Kisimondogo. I've been painting buildings. I come, I paint with the kids. I teach them how to do murals. We are like 10, sometimes before the COVID, we would even go like 80 to 70 children from all over the neighborhood, teaching them, how to do this kind of art. And even I was requesting, if possible, I have another wall from another house where I was thinking to do one logo for Spice FM.
How do you finance all this, Jimmy?
Yes?
How do you finance all this?
Finance, there's some people, I have got people. There's one lady, she's called Luce Shalahat. And she has really been helping me, because when she came and found what I was doing, so she talks to her friends, and they see how they can support me on the side of paint, even on the side of buying cement, sand, and paying for the labor for the people to cement the wall. Because if your house is not well cemented, I normally cement the whole wall, make a plaster on the wall, and then I do an art piece on that wall. So I was just trying to see if the government can come in and help me, because some of the time I don't have my funds are going off. Okay. But all in all is that how can I benefit as an artist and as a teacher? Because it's a high time we pass skills and talents to these children for the sake of the future.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So this is somebody who, trained, but is not registered.
His background would fit perfectly into what the government wants to do here.
So basically what we're talking about is government using other people. And you asked Akela Misori that question.
I did.
Other people in the community who have skills that could be used to keep the youth engaged.
Yes.
In fact, I remember the PS mentioned at some point when it came to religious education that the local religious leaders would be incorporated.
Akela Misori also mentioned them.
So now expanding it beyond religious.
Now you see,
these are the things that should encompass the mapping that is taking place.
Because this man
mentioned that he's a teacher as well, so he should be in the system.
Not only that, he has actually shown what he can do.
Yep.
It's something he's already involved in.
He's already doing it.
This thing that we're talking about is community learning. He is already doing community learning. And he's probably, and from what he's telling us, he was doing it even before COVID.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about engaging people, this is the sort of person who actually ought to be engaged. Because he, not only does he have proof of what he can do, but he has proof of what he continues to do.
But then you as the governing body should be aware that there are such people in the community. This is another thing.
I believe they're aware. It is now the mechanism for engaging them.
Maybe it's the fear. Like Akela Misori said, the people who are trained to deal and impart knowledge on children are teachers. What we've been having, these people in the community have been there since March. But what we are seeing is as a result of the students not engaging directly with teachers.
There's something very unique here, Erica, with what the government is proposing. For the first time, the supervisory powers that are being given, remember it's a multi-agency, it's a multi-pronged approach. Yeah. It's not just you just go to school and you're taught. The community is your supervisor.
Is your supervisor.
Yes. So the safety that Akela Misori was talking about exists simply because of this structure.
There's already a structure.
Yes, there is a structure.
Back to the phone lines. Alex in Kitale, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you, Alex?
I'm fine. Say hi to City and Nduh.
City and Nduh say hello to you as well.
Say hello to Frank as well. He's on the line.
Oh, Mwalimu Frank. Now, my point is, I'm a trained teacher.
Yep.
I've been employed by TSC. I went for the, what do we call it, for the registration for the community-based learning. It has now been 2 weeks, or I think a week and a half since I registered. I have not been told what next. So I'm also confused, and I also think that this program will not succeed.
So you haven't received any feedback or any way forward. Have you received the circular from TSC?
Nothing, zero.
And can I ask you what happens during this registration? You go, you're putting in your name and the area that you are currently, or what else happens during this registration?
I went there. I got a form.
Where is that?
Where?
This is Trans Nzoia, Kitale. But I don't work in this county, so we were told, nyinyi ambao mna work outside the county, you will fill this form separately. but you have to include the village where you come from.
What office is this?
The CSO, support curriculum support officer.
All right.
The lowest, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we were told, nyinyi endeni nyumbani, tutawaambia what next, because we also don't understand this thing.
Oh, sorry, hold on. Because we don't also understand this thing, meaning the support office is who is telling you this?
Is the lowest, the curriculum support officer. He's an employee of the TSC.
Sure, but he says he doesn't also understand what is supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
We wondered, how is it going to succeed if the officers themselves don't understand?
Yep.
This thing will not succeed, Eric. That is my view. Wangeacha tu tukae nyumbani for a whole year.
Mkule mshahara.
We go back 2021. I'm not the one who caused COVID. So walipe watu wafanye kazi yao nyumbani. Ama namna gani?
All right, we've heard you. Let's hear from Ian. Ian Muriithi in Kariako. Good morning. Ian has put us on hold. I don't know why. So let's just put him on hold as well. So, Frank, you hear what Alex has said?
Yeah.
Situation on the ground.
It's terrible. You see now, as I told you earlier, Kenya, the government is really good at putting things on paper. And what I have before me on this table, as I told you earlier, so elaborate, it can make a nice, very wonderful topic in university, in an education class. But listen to what Kenyans are saying. He has no idea. Even the person giving him that form has no idea what's going on. So we are in a terrible situation.
Are we sure they don't have an idea, or is this person just being a Kenyan? You know, when Kenyans don't want to take responsibility, they create distance between them and what they're actually supposed to do.
I thought the same thing.
But
information could have been passed to these people all the way to the ground, and they're told, this is what we expect you to do. Register the people and then tell them we're going to give you feedback. But then the person who's told to give the entire information, register and tell them we're going to give them feedback, does not pass it on to the junior officer. So the person at the very bottom just got register these people. That's the only bit of information that they got. So there's that as well. But also it's the work of the TSC and the other arms of government, the multi-agency as they're calling it, to ensure that this is happening seamlessly. That all teachers, for example, understand. If you want to use media and all other fora to communicate to people, do that. So that everybody knows this is what we expected to do. This is, do parents know when they're supposed to release their children to start going for community-based learning?
You know my benchmark.
That's Eric.
Oh, where?
Yeah.
Frank, go on.
Yeah. I wanted to say that I want to challenge the TSC boss, Dr. Nancy Macharia, to come out of her comfort zone, not just to be seen beside Professor Magoha during this normal pressers. Let's see her coming out as the boss of TSC, addressing the media as a person. You know, then she addresses all these components that people are doubting regarding this arrangement. We have a very good program here, but the implementation is the issue that we have at hand.
Yep, the TSC here, they're the ones who are responsible. They're the ones who should be answering. They're the ones who should be shedding clarity, especially to the teachers whom they've employed. If the teachers do not know, so I registered, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. I don't know where. I don't know whether now I should be going to look for my Nyumba Kumi and telling them, yeah, I've already registered. Or the Nyumba Kumi should be calling you and saying, I have your name on the list here because you registered and you're in my neighborhood, so I will be engaging you further. If all these are balls in the air and lack of clarity, like you said, City, is what is leading us to where we are. That we need a lot more information. Let's hear from Maxwell in Lokichogio. Good morning, Maxwell.
Morning, how are you?
Salama kabisa. How is Lokichogio?
Great.
All right.
Although I move around a lot, I'm in Nakuru right now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, say hi to Professor City, the Professor of Wisdom, and Nduh.
Good morning.
Morning.
City's still reeling from that description, but okay.
He's trying to come up with a voice.
No, I'm not. I'm actually thinking of how you describe what he has just said in Kiswahili. Umenipaka siagi, asante.
No, I wanted to I got the conversation in the middle. I wanted to find out how much money is involved, or is there any money being put towards this? Because with the COVID thing that has just passed and money has been squandered, you wonder how much more they're going to squander with this, because it's a good idea. We always have a good idea as Kenyans on paper, but then on implementing, somehow we always get it wrong.
Is there any money involved? Let's ask Frank, who covers this on a regular basis. Is there any?
I hope you could ask that question to the PS that you had in the morning.
Yeah. So probably maybe what we are seeing now is because there's no money.
Okay. So once we get those details of how much money is involved, and then we'll have a scope, because then we also have to be accountable of how that money is going to be spent.
Indeed.
But overall, it's a good idea. It's something that should be running all through, even when schools open over the weekends. It should be like just the same way. Okay, I'm a sports enthusiast, and I think the same can work even in sports, where over the weekends people meet in the fields and they do different things together, other than just learning and going to help parents at home.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. Thank you very much, Maxwell.
Okay, thank you.
Asante sana. So as we conclude the conversation today, I mean, we have looked at what has happened in the education sector over the last couple of months. This is coming 5 months down the road, but it's coming nonetheless. But also it's coming out in a way that we are not sure about the implementation phase of it. We know the planning phase of it sounds very good and very well thought out. The implementation phase of it may not be sounding as well thought out. So what's the way forward then?
I think maybe we just need to ask more questions,
right,
so that we can have clarity, because the thinking behind it, we understand it is good, but if it isn't implemented well, it will be useless. Yes, we might as well not have begun. And also, the question that has been brought up in this last segment was the issue of costs, because that also has to be interrogated. It doesn't have to go through an audit, but it has to be interrogated as to, is that what has been suggested, is that the best way of putting this money to work to achieve the desired ends?
Yeah, sure. Because with all of this, you start to want to ask the questions: that was this then the best method to use? Whether it was just for learner engagement, or it was to plug a hole that was a glaring hole in what was happening because of COVID. I agree with what our last caller said, in the sense that the things that are being suggested now shouldn't be just because we needed something to do. They should actually be part of wholesome learning anyway, which is one of the things that CBC as a curriculum wanted to address. So it shouldn't be just as something that we pick off, dust off when we need it, but it should be incorporated fully.
Yeah.
But even more importantly, consider, if you're talking about COVID and you're talking about learning and understanding how to deal with the disasters, pandemics such as this one here, there's always the aspect of, here is where we are. How do we engage these young people now to be more useful members of the community, so that they can also help, in the fight against COVID, in ensuring that certain things that could be done within the community are done. If, for instance, you're in flood-prone areas, if you're in areas that are locust-prone, whatever the situation, how do we ensure that this engagement produces the results of this better citizen that they're talking about?
They're talking about.
Yes.
Indeed. And Dorcas Kimoto, we see that you wanted to call in 0719-012-600. That's the number to always call when you want to call and have a conversation with us. Frank Otieno.
Naam.
As we conclude the conversation, what would you say is the best way to have this program rolled out?
Well, first of all, Eric, we are reminded by this whole scenario that a child belongs to the whole community. And that is why we now see the need for us to ensure that a child has different dimensions of gaining knowledge within the surrounding that they come from.
Yep.
And that is, you see now, we are struggling with a simple thing that could have been there anyway since time immemorial, that a child does not just have to go through the normal learning in class to be a complete human being in society and being useful. They have to be encompassed in other programs in the society, in the community, in the state, so that they are people that are useful Kenyans. And to me, this one is a good program, but the implementation is now wanting. Thank you.
So the questions that we'll keep asking, and you also, I'm sure you'll keep asking these questions in Daula Elimu. Frank Otieno is Mwalimu Frank Otieno. He is the KTN News education journalist and also the host of Daula Elimu on KTN News. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, Frank.
Thank you very much.
It's 4 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Shortly, we'll be telling you about Captain Cargo, K-A-R-G-O, the KPA information portal.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
Okay, so on this information portal, we are looking at the cargo importation procedures. And where were we?
So we were looking at documentation specific for importation of cargo, right? So then we get to the point where your release order then is received by KPA. So KRA or other partner state allocation agencies need to hand over what is called a release order. And then that is now sent, and your agent submits a pickup order thereafter. So, I mean, yeah, there's quite some documentation. So what Captain Cargo is doing at this point is making you understand what each piece of documentation is for and who it needs to be received from or handed over to. So then you get your pickup order and you pay the port charges. The truck arrives at the entry gate and you're issued with a position slip. With this position slip, you then proceed to the yard and it's loaded with your cargo, the truck now. And thereafter, the final piece of documentation is a gate pass, which is issued, and you exit the port.
So without a gate pass, you're not leaving?
Nope, sorry.
Okay. All right. Find all this information on kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. CT, today's proverb and yesterday's proverb.
I am just going to deal with today's proverb. Yesterday's proverb, just to give a hint of what is I want to look at. Taboos.
Okay.
But today's proverb. The frowning of a goat cannot stop the owner from taking it to the market. Yes, the frog, the cow, the water, excellent analogy. Yes. Liwe liwalo. What will be?
Will be.
Que sera, sera.
Yes. BBI ni BBI. Referendum ni referendum. Will they be irrespective? Can they be irrespective? Now we have learning, community learning. How will it be? Will it be?
Will the formula, the revenue sharing formula, pass?
Yes.
As it is?
If we frown.
Whether you frown or not.
Whether you frown or not.
Will it still go to the market?
Will it still go to the market? Interesting that you've brought up the BBI, because BBI also brings in the conversation about the Constitution. The day after tomorrow is the day that we're commemorating 10 years since the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So we'll be having the conversation around this for the next 2 days as well. You know, looking back at the gains, the misses, where have we implemented very well, where have we not implemented very well. So join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, where we look at all those things between now and 3 o'clock. Uninterrupted music, sugar and spice and everything nice. Monique comes and takes you home on Spice Drive from 3 to 7, and then the adults in the room will be here from 7 to 10 o'clock. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.